Oh yeah, Splatoon 1 and 2. These games are legendary. They're some of Nintendo's most unique games and they're bursting full of creativity and personality. You're a kid now, you're a squid now, and now you can be an octopus. If you couldn't tell, I absolutely love this series, and that's all thanks to my girlfriend Claire for introducing me to the games. From the gameplay, characters, to the stories, the backstories, and the music, it's all amazing. But oh man, the music, it's so damn good at setting the mood it needs to set. From feelings of urgency, to feeling grand, to relaxation, to seriousness, it's all amazing. So of course I was going to cover an iceberg on it. But what is an iceberg analogy? I'll explain it for those of you who don't know or need a reminder. Topics that are pretty surface level and are more known sit near the top. The deeper down the iceberg you go, the more obscure, less known and undocumented the entries get. I chose this one by JG Ultra. It has a lot of interesting topics to cover, it's quite big and there's a lot to talk about. Pretty much everything Splatoon related is covered here, and it's beautiful. I even got a special kudos. Thank you, JG. Now, I'm going to do this one a little differently. Because of how big the iceberg is, I'm going to split it up into two videos. Layers 1 to 3 will be part 1, which is this video, and then layers 4 to 6 will be part 2. So are you ready? Let's take an in-depth dive into the Splatoon iceberg. Callie and Marie aren't sisters, but cousins. Let's just drop this massive truth bomb right away. They are not sisters. They're cousins that have been branded as sisters. We know that they're a famous pop duo based in Nicopolis, but how did they get their duo name? Callie and Marie were born and grew up in Calamari County. After winning Nicopolis' first annual youth folk singing contest, they moved to Nicopolis where they became musicians and news announcers. It's also heavily implied that they are Agents 1 and 2 respectively. So heavily in fact that they are Agents 1 and 2. Just for some more context, they grew apart after the final Splatfest of Splatoon 1, which was Callie vs Marie. Marie won 3-0. That brings us to Splatoon 2, where Marie goes back to Calamari County to visit her parents with Callie, but Callie doesn't show up. That's also why we have the Off the Hook duo handling Nicopolis news. Pearl and Marina Ida took over from Callie and Marie. Squid Sisters is a stage name, you know? It has a nicer ring to it rather than Squid Cousins. Plus, sisters seem more marketable than cousins. But moving on from there, we have Octoling goggles/shades are mind control equipment. Octolings are a subspecies of the Octarians, and obviously, they're a lot different from each other. Octolings under Octarian control are always seen wearing these goggles in Splatoon 1, and these glasses in Splatoon 2. Mind control is something that does occur in Splatoon. During Splatoon 2's DJ Octavio fight, we can see that Callie is wearing shades similar to what the Octolings wear. When Marie snipes them off Callie, DJ Octavio outright calls them Hypno Shades, confirming that Octarians have mind control equipment. They do look a bit different to the normal Octoling shades, however I think that's just because Callie has a different uniform compared to theirs. So this isn't some outlandish theory, if anything it's heavily implied. It seems like the endgame would have been to eventually mind control Inklings using Callie and the glasses. So why switch from the goggles to the glasses? Fashion? A mind control upgrade? I mean, Calamari Incantation was able to get Octolings who listened to the song to leave the Octarian army, and then they found refuge in Nicopolis, which is where we see them in Splatoon 2. Marina was one of these Octolings. Here's a photo of her at the DJ Octavia fight of Splatoon 1. That's where the Squid Sisters played Calamari Incantation. According to Marina, Octolings that hear the song become discontent with Octarian society and choose to leave. Oh yeah, and also, the melody is etched into Inkling and Octoling DNA. What? No wonder it's so good at stopping the effects of brainwashing. And if it wasn't obvious already, Octolings are very similar to Inklings and they embrace Inkling culture. A culture full of music, popularity, fashion, and war games. Although I don't think most Inklings have caught on to the fact that these are Octolings, you know, Octarians. But why does that matter? We have Marina as the new Octoling announcer, and now we can play as Octolings after completing the expansion. So it's not too crazy to think that the Shades could have been an upgraded attempt to stop the influence of Calamari incantation. So let's continue to focus on Octolings, NW Player 123 and Playable Octolings. She is a self-proclaimed game modder extraordinaire and preservationist. During version 2.0.0 of Splatoon 1, she data mined the game's code and found playable Octolings. The only way to play as one was to mod them into the game since they were never officially playable. Naturally, I asked her how she did this, and basically, she made a WebKit and kernel exploit with her friend to modify data. She swapped out models and files and made a memory patch to replace a string of code because the Octoling's eyes wouldn't render properly. Finally, she found out that you can modify a single byte in a save file for some unused code, but this caused an unforeseen issue for players. Splatoon 1 online Octoling hacked save file corruptions. Softlocks are obviously bad. This happened because the previously mentioned byte determines gender, and its value is equal to 0 or 1 for boy and girl, but you can change it to a 2 to play as an Octoling. So then if the online spot pass catches that your profile has that value of 2 in it, it'll nuke other people's plazas that you appear in. People created their own strategies to combat save file corruptions, with the best solution being to stay in the player room with the Octoling until they disappear. Once they left, people would play one more match and then everything would be fine. Saving your data on a USB was also a good way to combat Octolings, because at least you had a backup if everything went wrong. We don't have this problem in Splatoon 2, obviously, because we can play as Octolings after finishing the expansion. Patrick Gilland posted a video playing with NW Player 123 to showcase playable Octolings. They also have their own Kraken models too, as shown by Senpai Gaio in their own separate video. The tentacles curl up too to appear visually different to Inkling Krakens. It's pretty cool that this was just here in the game. There's always so much stuff hidden in game files and folders ready to be shown or modified. Pearl X Marina. Okay, before you ask, no, this has nothing to do with any adult content. What this is actually about is the relationship between Pearl and Marina. During the Chaos vs. Order Splatfest of Splatoon 2, Pearl makes it seem like she's going to end off the hook. But nah, she just wants her and Marina to branch off into new genres of music. But then Pearl reaches deep into her heart and says this to Marina. Just look at the eyes Pearl is giving Marina as well too, but this was the main conversation that started Pearl X Marina. They could very well just be lovers. You know, a duo in the streets and a splatfest in the sheets. Savage Marina. She just destroys Pearl whenever she gets the chance. Just look at these. Great question, Pearl, because this video is sponsored by the lovely people over at Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is a tool that you can use to encrypt your data and hide your online location. You see, when you connect to a VPN service, your information is encrypted and decrypted safely by the VPN server. This is what allows you to access region-locked content by changing your location. That means Pearl can watch her favorite show region-locked to Octo Canyon while still being in Inkopolis. But in my case, I have a Netflix subscription and I want to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But uh-oh, it's not available where I live. With Atlas VPN, this issue is easily solved because I can just change my location to France. Just like that, I can watch JoJo Seasons 1 to 2 and a bunch of other region-locked content exclusive to many other countries. this doesn't just apply to Netflix. You can use this VPN service on other streaming sites like Disney+, Amazon Prime, BBC iPlayer, Hulu, HBO, and many more. What's also impressive is that Atlas VPN is available on all devices, so you can watch all the shows you want on any device you own. There's currently an 86% discount for their 3-year deal with a 30-day money-back guarantee for just $139 a month. Not even Sheldon has a deal this good, so what are you waiting for? Check out their service by clicking their link in the video description below or in the pinned comment. Thank you Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. Now let's continue on with the next iceberg entry. Japan Idol Vocaloid Concerts. Nintendo has been setting up these hologram concerts since 2016. They first featured the Squid Sisters and then Off the Hook joined in. They have 9 concerts in total from 2016 to 2019. Due to a certain bra movement, there wasn't any in 2020. These are very similar to Vocaloid concerts. Think Hatsune Miku. So the band duos appear as holograms and they sing and move around. There's also a good mix of live and pre-recorded audio used throughout the show. It looks pretty realistic and everyone's having a good time, but honestly, it looks a little uncanny. I don't know how to describe it, but their movements seem a bit off. Setting that aside, I'd be down to go to one of these with my homies. It looks like a ton of fun. Splatoon 1 and 2 train. There is a train system present in Splatoon 1 seen at Inkopolis Plaza, and some people thought that you could actually ride them places. That wasn't the case, but the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion made it possible because of the Deep Sea Metro. Although the Deep Sea Metro is underground compared to the trains seen above ground in Splatoon 1. I guess we never needed to use the trains above land because of the super jump. But you can't super jump in a train underground, so trains are needed for travel. Rank S plus 50. This was the highest rank you could get in Splatoon 2's ranked battles. However, in version 3.0.0, Rank X was introduced, which replaced ranks S plus 10 to S plus 50. With Rank X, players fight for X power, which is similar to League power. You get matched with and against players of similar ranks, and each season lasts a month. After that month is up, it's back to doing your placement matches to determine your X power again. Test fires in the world premiere Splatfest. The Splatoon Global Test Fire was a free Splatoon 1 demo that was released on May 8, 2015 for the Wii U. That was 20 days before the global release of the full game. In the demo, players could play 4v4 turf wars at scheduled times. There were also options to pre-purchase the game at various points to get special gear to use in the demo. Although the gear didn't carry over to the final game, which was strange, there was also another test fire called Splatoon Test Fire that was released on the 17th of August 2015. This demo had players battle it out during scheduled times too, and players could also purchase the full game through the demo. Splatoon 2 had a global test fire too. It was on the 24th of March 2017. This global test fire was set up like the other ones. Players could participate in 4v4 turf wars during scheduled times. But now we have the Splatoon 2 world premiere Splatfest. On July 7th, 2017, a few weeks before the game was released, we had a global Splatfest on the 15th of July. Japan had Rock vs Pop, and North America, Oceania, and Europe got Cake vs Ice Cream. There's no record of the results on Splatnet 2, but they're recorded on the Splatoon wiki. As we can see, Rock beat Pop 2-1, and Cake lost to Ice Cream 1-2. So we've gotten a few Splatoon demos leading up to the game's releases, and one a bit after Splatoon 1's release. Moving on from there, we have Sunken Scrolls and the Great Turf War. These scrolls can be found and collected in the hero mode levels for both games. One can be found in each stage. Splatoon 1 has 27 pages to collect, and Splatoon 2 has 28. In Splatoon 2's case, the last page is a collection of stickers obtained after completing the balloon challenges in each overworld. There's a lot of concerning things found in these. From Splatoon 1, we can see that Inkling's brains are simple and predatory. Adam and Eve, a dig at Inkling culture, basically Octarian propaganda. We also have Humanity's Demise, Real Life, and Cryosleep. Splatoon 2 has some similar stuff, but it's more focused on the culture and the creatures of the world. So back to the first game scrolls, Sunken Scroll 12 shows that there was something called the Great War, and the first battles were won by the Octarians because the Inklings didn't wake up early enough in the morning to defend themselves. This war was actually the Great Turf War. In one of these battles, great octo weapons stormed the Inkling stronghold. All seemed lost for the Inklings, until someone pulled the weapons plugs out of their sockets. We actually fight these Octo weapons as bosses in both hero modes and the Octo expansion. Back on topic, the Inklings had won the battle. Historians agree that they won because Inklings had a superior number of limbs. Squids have 10 limbs versus an octopus's 8 limbs, so the math checks out. Now we have a photo of the Squid Beak Splatoon, Fighters of the War. We can see Captain Cuttlefish crossing his arms, and Sheldon's grandfather, Moses Schellendorf, is seen standing around. Not sure who the other people are, but Judd's here as well. This looks very stylized, but it is a photograph. This means that Captain Cuttlefish used to look like this. It's very contrasting to how he looks now. He can also be seen talking to an Octarian Octoling. They never thought that the rising sea levels would have caused them to battle over remaining territory. These are the same rising sea levels that made humanity go extinct. Here's a not so fun fact. The sea levels rose because of countless human wars that led to the South Pole being nuked. This caused all the icebergs to melt. And we all know that if the icebergs melt, I won't be able to make more content. Back on topic, global warming had a role in this too, but melting the ice was the breaking point. So once the octopuses, squids, and anything else evolved into bipedal legends, it started the mollusk era. They needed to live on land because of their land-dwelling forms, so they fought for it. In a way, we're feeling the after effects of the Great Turf War. As an example, the fight over the Great Zapfish. Octarian society had to escape to these underground domes because they lost the turf war. Their homes started to crumble from a lack of electrical power, so they stole the Great Zapfish to save themselves. But hey, the world of Splatoon is ever evolving, and the game's writers have clearly put a lot of thought and effort into this story they've created. That was a lot to talk about, so let's move on to the flying Great Zapfish. We all know the Great Zapfish. It powers the whole of Inkopolis. It's also over 100 years old, and it's been stolen by the Octarians twice, once in each game. So after rescuing it in Splatoon 2, it'll wrap itself around the Decker Tower. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you can see it flying around Inkopolis Square. How majestic. I was waving back at you in Splatoon 1 and 2.
Dear Diary, so like today my favorite Inkopolis idols waved to me. It was so awesome. I'll never forget this day. I love them so much and I want to be with them forever and ever. I need them.
Who wrote this? Oh! After the news broadcast finishes, you can find Callie and Marie talking to each other in a studio room in Splatoon 1. Wait, in Splatoon 2, you can find Pearl and Marina chilling in a studio room too, and they'll wave to you as well. You kind of have to be pressed right up against the glass window staring them down though. Okay, so Ebb and Flow / Dudes Be Sleepin' demo and the Testfire music. So let's start off with Ebb and Flow. It's a song performed by Off the Hook and it has some history. But first of all, this song is great. We're listening to it right now. It's fast, gets you pumped, and has a good balance of rapping and singing. It lives up to its name too. Ebb and Flow is the recurrent pattern of coming and going, or decline and regrowth. The song feels like it does that, like a cycle. You know, you gain some turf, and then you lose that turf, and then you gain it back, lose it, gain it back, 1 minute left, everything gets frantic, and then the match is over. This was also the song that gave Off the Hook their first bit of popularity. It was revealed in the Octo expansion that Marina created a demo of it on her own called Ebb and Flow.fresh. 8-Legged Advance was sampled for the song. That's the song you sometimes hear in Splatoon 1's Hero Mode missions, you know, the one that's like boop, 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 boop. Well anyway, she got Pearl to listen to it after asking her to form a duo band together. Pearl had nothing to lose, her solo career wasn't going anywhere, so they formed Off the Hook and that was their first single. If you haven't heard this song before, then you haven't been playing Splatfest. The song only plays during Splatfest battles. There's also an Octo expansion remix of this song that plays during the final Turf War battle against Commander Tata. The first 2 minutes of the level plays Fly Octo Fly, however, the final minute is a new song that acts similarly to Now or Never, aka the song that plays in the last minute of Turf War. This song is called Ebb and Flow Octo. It really does make the boss fight a dramatic Now or Never epic grand finale. I mean, dare I say it, but these songs are hands down some of the best songs in the game, if not the best songs. And then just when you think it's all over, BAM! Another remix of Ebb and Flow plays during Pearl's Scream Off with Tata. There are some other versions of the song and its remixes too. We have Ebb and Flow Live and Ebb and Flow Octo Live. These are all slightly different from the versions they derive from. Now moving on to the Dudes Be Sleepin' demo, aka first heard in session 9 of Marina's chat room, it's a heavy metal song screamed by Pearl. It's pretty vulgar, hence why the title is censored, why a lyric is censored, and why it was never played on any Inkopolis radio stations. It ends with a large crash, followed by murmur from the audience, and then Pearl speaking into the microphone. The file name for the song is Reg Bow Down Ball Gig 08.mp8. Pearl brought it up as her and Marina were looking back at her solo career. They mentioned that the song sold only 1,000 copies in total. Damn. But it's okay because Ebb and Flow was released a little after Dudes Be Sleepin'. This could imply that this was Pearl's final solo career song before partnering up with Marina. Now onto the Testfire music. Splatoon 2's Testfire had its own versions of some of the music. Incoming, Rip Entry, Undertow, and Now or Never are different in the Testfire. They're just slightly different versions to what we get in the final version of the game. There's really not much to these Testfire songs, so that's that. But it's pretty amazing that even the songs in the game have a story behind them. I mean, every song in the game is linked to a fictional band or artist. Let's move on from here to discuss Japanese exclusive gear and design contests by Koro Koro and Famitsu. So in November of 2017, a magazine by the name of Koro Koro announced that there would be a new gear set released for Splatoon 2. This set would be called the Emperor Gear and was worn by Emperor, a recurring character from the Splatoon manga. Hey again, it's me, while editing. So basically what's happened is I got this for Christmas, and I got it from a friend. He knows who he is, he knows what he's done, and you go, everything seems normal. This is the first page, by the way, so Inkopolis Plaza, everything's chillin', and then, what the fuck is this? What is this? To get this set, players had to have a download code from the December 2017 issue of the magazine. Similarly, a set of spy gear was announced on the 9th of June 2018. More was unveiled a month after, and it was made available via download code from the September 2018 issue of the magazine. Finally, Koro Koro hosted a drawing competition for designing new gear, and the winning design got put into the game. It was released on the 15th of April 2019. I really dig this one and the Emperor set, not so much the spy ones. Now, Famitsu is a video game magazine in real life and a clothing brand in Splatoon 2. They offered some gear for anyone that purchased the 4th Koshien fan book, which was released on the 4th of March 2019. It seems to be an octo-pattern bandana and a hoodie. It seems alright. Just as a small mention, there was some gear promoted through 7-Eleven in Japan. However, they were made available for Western players via the My Nintendo Rewards program for 100 platinum points. But its availability ended on the 2nd of January 2020. Now continuing on with clothes, well, shoes. Splatoon x Nike. Japan had an exclusive Nike-sponsored Splatfest between March 24th and March 25th of 2018. It was the latest model versus popular model, so it was the Nike Air Max 270s versus the Nike Air Max 95s. Pearl was the team captain for the 270s, and Marina was the team captain for the 95s. There were also some shoes that were available to order off the Splatnet companion app. They mimicked the 270s and the 95s. That's cool and all, but what were the results of this Splatfest? Marina won 2-1, but only just. This whole Splatfest feels really strange to me because of the whole real-world influence behind it. But it still fits the theme of Splatfest, participating in war games to fight over trivial topics. Post-boss sounds. So before and after defeating a boss in either game's hero modes, you can have the option to just hang around and do nothing. If you wait long enough, unnerving sounds can be heard coming from the pits underneath the boss arena. These are extremely off-putting for a game like Splatoon. Heck, even when Tsubasa Sakaguchi, the game's co-director, was questioned on it, he said he had never heard of it and didn't know it was even in the game. Here's what some of it sounds like. Fan theories and speculations began to run wild, with the biggest one linking with Splatoon 2's Octo expansion. we are introduced to the Deep Sea Metro in Agent 8, the 10,008th participant in Captain Tartar's testing. Obviously, Tartar isn't a good guy. It's an AI that was created by the Professor 12,000 years before the events of Splatoon 2. He's the same dude that had Judd cryogenically frozen for 10,000 years and allowed him to be cloned to create Lil Judd. He wanted to make sure the next intelligent life forms didn't make the same mistakes as humans, so he wanted to pass down knowledge to them as a way to help them out. Tartar was supposed to do that. He even saw hope in the Inklings, Octarians, and Octolings. But after witnessing their evolution, countless wars, and obsession with fashion and trivial things, it had concluded that they were not worthy of this knowledge. So its new plan was to kill everything and create the ultimate life form. That's what the blender's for. Why is all of this important to know? Because it's believed we hear this process happening while we hang around the boss arenas. The train sounds, the agonizing screams. Look at what Tartar puts us through. It would be safe to say that we can hear the suffering of the test subjects. The Digital Dream Club on YouTube has a great video covering this, so check it out if you can. There's also a creepypasta style theory about the developers of the game being worked to hell. The adrenaline and craziness felt during development caused them to scream and act irrational, so their pain made it into the game. Pat, if you're watching this, take notes. Now finally, to finish off this layer, we have Splatoon esports. There is an esports scene for Splatoon 2. It's not as big as, say, League of Legends or Counter-Strike, but it's sizable enough to exist. Here's a fun fact, it's the only Nintendo IP to have an esports scene fully backed by Nintendo. They definitely don't treat it like they would treat Smash Bros. I mean, sometimes because, you know, hashtag free Melee happened. Nintendo's relationship with esports is strange to say the least. I'll touch on this fiasco a little later into the video, so going back on topic, watching top-level Splatoon gameplay is an experience. It's so calculated and fast-paced. It's probably the most unique esport you could watch too. And with that being said, we're finished up with this layer. It was enormous. I had written up 8 pages discussing everything. That's about 2 times what I would usually write for a layer on average. So now, we'll be moving on to the next layer, so let's get into it.
The eclipse of the sun will be visible between 10 of 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. The maximum percent recur probably 10
To start this layer off, I'm gonna hand it over to a good friend. I've had him on the channel before, and here he is again. So give a big warm welcome to Big Marsh!
Thank you. It is I, Large Quagmire, and I am back again to read more entries. Sunflower was nice enough to have me back on, so here I am to read even more iceberg entries. Splatoon means so much to me. It was the first shooter I ever played, and I bought it on release on the Wii U eShop. Like, I still play it to this day every so often, and there's still a community there. Very small, granted, but there is still a community. I haven't played Splatoon 2, but that game looks even better in every aspect. So, I'm so happy that Sunflower invited me here today to help him with this iceberg. But I'm not going to waste any more time, let's hop straight into it with male Octoling Afro hitbox myth. When Octolings were first released, it was thought that the Afro hairstyle males could have would have a different hitbox. It wasn't the case, however. I've seen a video trying to show you can clip the Afro with a shot of ink, but it doesn't really work. Spike and Merch eat super sea snails alive. Spike is a sea urchin that we can find in Inkopolis Plaza. In Splatoon 1, after reaching level 4, you can order gear that other players in your plaza are wearing. Each piece of gear you order will be placed in a queue of up to 3 items, where, after a day, you can then collect the gear from Spike. That's not what matters here, though. Handing him your well-earned sea snails can re-roll the skill abilities on your gear. Take a look at the snails. Some are cowering in fear while a pile of shells sits next to them. Suspicious. But moving on to Splatoon 2, Spike is replaced with Merch, another sea urchin. And Spike used a get-rich-quick scheme that goes as follows: Super Sea Snail, tree, coins, laptop. Anyways, he made 10 million G in a year, so obviously he's enjoying life with his money in this cafe. Merch is probably doing the exact same get-rich scheme, so you can get ordered gear from him. He'll also be able to re-roll your skill abilities, and he can do some other stuff too. So they're both sea urchins. Huh? As a species, they pretty much eat whatever they can. Sea snails are on the menu, and our merchants don't want to move from their spots in Inkopolis. So where would they eat? right there in front of the other sea snails. No wonder they cower in fear. Now I think I've cracked the scheme. These little urchins have set up a business where they order clothes for a cheap price, inflate them, and then sell them to us. The profits are enormous. One of the other stuff I said merch can do does refer to the ability to scrub your sub-ability scrolls. Sea urchins have sharp teeth, and they can scrape algae off rocks, so it's not too much of a stretch to think that maybe they could scrape the sub-abilities off your gear. And then we give them money in snails for their services, and then they've secured a rich, happy life. Although I still have no idea what the tree refers to in their scheme, though. Moving on from there, Splatoon 1 Ink Brush Piranha Pickbrush. Head to this stage and bring a paintbrush, or, if you want to get fancy, a roller. Make sure you make your way to the middle of the map where the tower control tower spawns. After throwing out some ink with your weapon, smack yourself against the tower while walking on the conveyor belt, and then ta-da! Boneless Inkling. Technically, all Inklings are boneless because they have no bones in their body, but this just shows how flexible and weird they can get. Unfortunately, this clearly intentional feature was patched in the 2.5.0 version of the game, and since then we have never been able to see boneless Inklings in their true form. Most idols are not Inklings, but cuttlefish. This theory is sort of linked to the Captain Craig cuttlefish. In Splatoon 1, Callie and Marie confirmed to Agent 3 that the captain is their grandfather, so he's a cuttlefish, making his granddaughter's cuttlefish as well, right? No. But I hear you. You remember that he said he has cuddle bones in the Octo expansion. It was a joke. See, Cuttlefish Man is actually an Inkling. Here's why. During the Octo expansion, he spits some straight fire occasionally, and during one of his bars, he says he's 130 years old. That's really old if you didn't know. How is he able to be this old? In the Art of Splatoon, an official Splatoon art book, it says that Inklings can preserve their bodies by sun drying. Inklings lose ink as they get older, so that's how they would be able to do this. Plus, I've heard that he fought in the Great Turf War, and he very much looks like some of the other Inklings. Also, here he is in squid form, as seen in the Splatoon 1 credits. So what about Pearl Marie? Pearl is an Inkling, and there's nothing that states otherwise. Well, other than this theory I found here, comparing Pearl's body features to a cuttlefish. It's interesting, but I think it's a bit of a stretch. Oh, but Marina is clearly an Octoling. Damn, she's taller than Sunflower too. Ultra Hammer Shortcut. Before version 5.0.1 of Splatoon 2, you used to be able to use the momentum of your Ultra Star swings to skip certain parts of the level. Weasley MK shows this off in his video. Obviously, this is a pretty huge exploit. You can avoid fights and flank your opponents with ease to get an advantage over them, which is why it was patched.
Best special weapon, 10 out of 10. No one can beat it.
And I think that's about all I have to cover. Thank you again so much to Sunflower for having me. These are fun to go through. There's actually quite a bit of this that I didn't even realize was in Splatoon 1. And overall, I just had a good time.
And now I can't read anymore. So that's it. I'm gone. Peace.
Thank you again to Mr. Marsh, and now we'll be moving on to Splatfest Determine the Future. So I've already said that Splatoon 1's final Splatfest, Callie vs Marie, was won by Marie 3-0. Development of Splatoon 2 had already begun prior to the start of the Splatfest. What's awesome is that the production team had agreed on having the game's story reflect the results of the Splatfest. The phrase, "Your choice will change the next Splatoon" was going to be the tagline for the Splatfest, but it was ultimately scrapped because the game wasn't even announced at that point. Instead, the Squiz Sister stories were published on the official Nintendo Splatoon website. This is an excellent read. I would highly recommend. It set up the events of the Splatoon 2 story, and I'll explain it in one of the next entries. Fun fact, Splatoon producer Hisashi Nogami sided with Team Callie and was upset with the 3-0 loss to his team.
Know your place.
Now that brings us to the second game's final Splatfest, the Splatpocalypse. Chaos vs. Order. I mean, technically it's not the final Splatfest, but regarding story content, it is. Anyway, basically, Pearl represented Team Chaos, while Marina represented Team Order, and Pearl won 3-0. Another landslide victory during a final Splatfest. So if we're to believe that this Splatfest will also affect the next Splatoon game, then oh boy, I am worried. We know Marina used to live and work under the Octarian regime. It's not exactly her fault though, she didn't know any better. But what if she cracks and goes back to the Octarians? The gear we got from her team was this helmet and glasses. The helmet is called the Eye of Justice, and the glasses are called the Hive Mind Antenna. The helmet looks like something a security guard or soldier would wear, and everyone wearing the antennas would probably be able to think like a hive mind. Can you see the picture I'm painting? Let's hope that Marina doesn't go crazy with trying to control people. And let's hope that Off the Hook continues to make cool music with no problems. No problems at all. Alright, Splatoon 3 was announced while I'm editing this video and I am so hyped. And I know you all feel the same way I do. My thoughts on Marina going a bit cuckoo crazy may not be right. The first thing I thought of when I saw this was Team Chaos. They won the Splatfest and this is most likely their influence on the setting of Splatoon 3. I've been discussing it with JG Ultra and some other friends and here's what we've noticed. Character customization. It seems like a step up from Splatoon 2. Cool eye colors, universal hairstyles, and more shorts options. We get a little Samanoid body and it can be customized a bit too. A bow? Probably more new weapon types to get excited for. The Eiffel Tower? This means that Splatoon as a whole, or this game specifically, could be set in a post-human France, or near a post-human France. Now, this whole place in general. At first, I thought it could have been Calamari County, but everything seems to be dried up. So it got us thinking, is this the bottom of the ocean? A dried up land? Why is everything so dried up? What could Team Chaos and Pearl have done? Speaking of Pearl, the idols. They are nowhere to be found in this trailer. I wonder what's happened to them and other specific characters in the Splatoon universe. This desert area looks enormous, so maybe we're gonna get an open world hero mode too. Maybe we'll be able to find key characters in the hero mode as well, old and new. We are then shown this new hub world, possibly set in Inkopolis. This big place looks pretty condensed. Hopefully there are some new things to do here. Multiplayer. This is where it's gonna be at. New spawning systems. No more spawn point. You choose the spawn point thanks to these coffee machines. Why? I don't know. With Chaos, there's less restrictions, so maybe that's why. Or maybe it's just because the regular spawn points just don't work anymore. One thing I've noticed is this Inkling's movement here. Maybe we have some new strafing options. Now the weapons, they seem bigger and heavier than usual. Crab? Possibly a new sub-weapon? Or maybe it's a special weapon. My best guess on what it does is it'll act like an automated sentry gun that shoots at players in its range. Speaking of special weapons, something similar looking to the Inkzooka is back. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Inkzooka or a modified version of it. I'm going to discuss the bans of Splatoon 1 special weapons in the next entry, so let's just say Chaos wouldn't uphold the law and regulations, or maybe there's just a complete lack of law and regulations. And that's that. Back into the Ink 2022. I am so ready, and I hope you are too. Why Splatoon 1 special weapons and Rainmaker were actually banned. Have you noticed that none of the special weapons in Splatoon 1 made it into Splatoon 2? In-game lore shows us that they actually got banned. Looking at Sunken Scroll 11 from the game, we can see that posters are stuck to this page. You'll notice that the Ink Strike and the Inkzooka are seen illustrated. The text associated with the page reads as followed: major changes to regulations by the powers that have been held to a call for the complete replacement and overhaul of all special weapons. Designers and manufacturers are struggling to comply with this new regulation. New regulations, huh? Well, yeah, because they were all extremely powerful and insanely dangerous. Manufacturers struggled to comply, but they eventually did it, and hey, from a gameplay perspective, the new special weapons are fairly balanced, at least I think they are. Plus the Rainmaker was nerfed too. It doesn't act like an Inkzooka anymore, it shoots balls now. I know I've already said it, but damn, the amount of detail that's gone into story building for these games is insane. It's so good, so juicy. Super jumps are based on flying squids. The Japanese flying squid, also known as the Pacific flying squid, is the topic of this entry. These things have been noted to be able to fly as much as 30 meters above the surface of water. Presumably, they do this to avoid predators and to save energy as they move across vast oceans. We can do this in Splatoon as well because of the super jump. We're able to target a teammate, spawn location, or beacon and jump to it. And when the story calls for it, anyone can just jump to wherever they want. Octolings can do this too, but there's no such thing as a flying octopus. I think they can do it because, you know, it would be very unbalanced if they couldn't. So there you go. It's assumed that the idea for the super jump came from these flying squids. Neat. Commander Tartar's primordial ooze is blended octolings. Here we go. So remember when I talked about Tartar's psychotic plan? This is part of its plan to kill everything and create the ultimate life form. Octolings and basically anything else killed in the metro that obtains all 4 things is to be used to make this ooze. When you collect all 4 things in the Octo expansion, Tartar will put them all together to make a blender. He basically tries to kill you and Captain Cuttlefish, and it's for the ooze. This isn't some theory. Quote, now here's something you need to know. The primordial ooze is used to sterilize and control Octarians and anything else Tartar wants to control. But it is also something that will be used to create the ultimate life form. It gets sadder. Deadfish, an Octoling music artist, is green and blue. She's been sanitized and is noted to have little of her former self and memories remaining. The subtitle for the Drop the Base station reads, "Back Like I Never Left," which insinuates that the sanitized Octostomp has memories of its previous battles. So even though they've lost their free will, they still probably retain some memories. It gets scarier. We play as Agent 8, aka number 10,008, the 10,008th participant in Tartar's testing. There have been so many others before Agent 8. The amount of Octolings and other creatures that have been blended, died trying to complete the tests, or have escaped is unconfirmed. But we can assume most, if not all, have met death. It's obvious that these tests are designed to wean out the weak test subjects so that only the quote-unquote best DNA is used to create the primordial ooze. These test subjects were all somebodies at some point. Agent 8 clearly has a love for poetry, friends, and has been swayed by calamari incantation. Plus, I love their tolerance for Captain Cuttlefish's antics. Calamari incantation has swayed the minds of Marina, Agent 8, and who knows how many more Octolings have been swayed. Back on topic, Agent 8 was very fortunate to have the help of so many people which led to their escape. This whole time, Tartar had actually been very upfront with us about the blender. It promised us access to the Promised Land. You'd think that would mean Inkopolis. No, Tartar's version of the Promised Land is a higher plane. So heaven, death, the ooze. There's no way we could have known that because that's its version of a promised land. So now you know that the ooze that it wants to use to create the ultimate life form is the blended remains of other creatures. Hidden Splatoon comic on Nintendo's website that explains the events between 1 and 2. I previously mentioned that it is a great read and I would highly recommend reading it. I've left a link to it in the description if you feel like doing so, but just as a quick summary, here's what happens. The popularity of the Squiz Sisters after the Callie vs. Marie Splatfest was through the roof, and their lives became super corporate and super busy. Marie felt as though they were growing apart due to their new schedules. Callie, clearly overwhelmed, overworked, and not thinking straight, went missing before a family trip to Calamari County. Marie went to look for help. Agent 3 and Captain Cuttlefish were nowhere to be found, probably because they were stuck in the deep-sea metro, and the police's searches were unfruitful. Marie left for Inkopolis Square to find the freshest and most skillful inkling she could find, aka Agent 4. And that's where Splatoon 2 starts us off at. The story is really good at explaining a few things, but we still have no real idea as to why Callie ended up in the hands of DJ Octavio. If you replay the fight against DJ Octavio in Splatoon 2, Marie will point out that we're fighting DJ Octavio and Callie again. Callie will tell you that she's fighting with Octavio again because the Hypno Shades look good on her. This implies that Callie busted Octavio out of the cum jar on purpose, and now we're doing this again. But hey, that's okay. Marie will always come to her aid whenever she commits treason. Every single time. How sweet. In the official Splatoon 2 art book, there are illustrations of Callie looking a bit upset in what appears to be an Octarian alleyway. She seems to be carrying a gun and there's ink on the floor. We can see another image of her being comforted by an Octarian who looks to be clearly sympathizing with her. Maybe it's not too outlandish to think that she went to the Octarians in her sad state. It paints a small picture. She went to the Octarians but was a bit hesitant, and then she let them in on her problems and maybe even made a friend. But in the end, She succumbed to DJ Octavio's plans. But I mean, who knows? That's just my speculation. Anyway, after the off-the-hook news announcement that Callie is back, we get a new song from the Squid Sisters play as the credits roll. It's called Fresh Start. It's their fresh start as a duo. The Squid Sisters were finally back. And what's stopping us from having our fresh starts too? No more of this clout chasing, no more of this sheltered view of the world, no more mindless war games, and heck, no more of this division we force upon ourselves.
But don't you ever try to tell me that sweaters are cooler than socks.
And with that, we should move on to using beacons to get out of the test range in Splatoon 2. To do this, you have to use a movement exploit that allows you to get extra height. So what do I mean by that? As you can see in this Wesley MK video on the topic, after a few inkjet weapon swap jumps, there's a beacon placed, it's jumped to, and then rinse and repeat until you're outside of the test range area. Wesley shows off that you can walk on the pipes and bars on the ceiling, and you can clip into geometry too. It's a pretty neat glitch that lets you see certain parts of the test range area that you wouldn't be able to see normally. The glitch is like a happy little accident. So here's a funny little accident. Great Zapfish accidentally removed in update. In 2017, version 2.0.0 for Splatoon 2 was released. For some reason, the Great Zapfish had just disappeared from everyone's Inkopolis squares. Why and how? Who knows, but Nintendo did address it, saying it was a mistake and would be fixed soon. And then eventually, the Great Zapfish was back. Hold on, is this canon? Was the third kidnapping of the Great Zapfish by Nintendo? Here's some more Zapfish talk. Great Zapfish in Piranha Pit. In both games, walk over here in the Piranha Pit stage and wait until the last minute of the match. Look into the distance where this lake lies and then ooh, the Great Zapfish. And that about brings us to the end of this layer. This one was full of glitches, some facts, and speculations. So let's move on to the third layer of the iceberg, but the final layer for this video. All armor sets are obtainable as gear in Splatoon 2. There was a rumor spread that you could obtain every armor piece from both games as gear. As cool as it would have been, it's not true. Only 2 armor sets are available as gear, the Armor Replica gear set and the Null Armor Replica gear set. The Armor Replica gear set is unlocked through the use of the Marina amiibo. As we can see, it's the level 1 armor in the Splatoon 1 hero mode. The Null Armor Replica gear set can be obtained through the Octo expansion after completing 4, 5, and 6 Memcake sets. It's clear to see that this set replicates a level 2 armor pickup in the expansion, but sadly, that's it. There's no other ones you can unlock. Pearl and Marina concept art. Back to the Splatoon 2 art book, we have the Off the Hook Cruise concept art. Are you ready for what I'm about to unveil? I hope so, because here it is. Who is responsible for this? I mean, Marina doesn't look too different from her final design, but Pearl, she looks like a whole different lady. Oh, and this drawing. Dude, you thought Wario on the pole was looking good? God damn. There's more concept art of Pearl here in a dress. She even has this little inkling form. And here she is in some fancy clothes with an umbrella. Now, I'll go over this tentacles image in the next entry, so let's focus on this one. Look at Pearl's hair! She's an Octoling in this image. This definitely would have changed Pearl's backstory and just Pearl herself. Maybe she would have come to Inkopolis with Marina after the Calamari Incantation event. They seem to be wearing matching outfits too, and Captain Cuttlefish is really into it. But I think that's the issue. They seem too similar. I mean, we already have a band duo that dress similar to each other anyway, so I'm glad they went with this finalized version of Pearl. She's great the way she is. But imagine rocking up to Inkopolis Square and seeing this. Off the Hook was going to be called Tentacles. I think this refers to the fact that it could have been called Tentacles worldwide, because in Japan, Off the Hook is called Tentacles. Tentakuruzu. Let's go back to this image. We can see a colorful tentacle sign in the background, plus some horns and boxes. I have no idea what they were going for here, but I dig it. It's fresh and it looks jazzy. In any case, I for one think that Off the Hook is a great name for the duo. Plus, they have their little catchphrase, and I like that. Inklings can be in water, but they can't swim. As you know, if you jump into water as an inkling or octoling, you can't swim. You and your ink sort of just diffuse into the water and then you respawn. But it's okay, see, as long as you're standing in the water, you're totally fine. I assume your ink sac goes completely wild once you're submerged in water and you just diffuse into nothing. From a gameplay perspective, this is a pretty cool kill barrier, and it makes sense from a story perspective as well. You know what doesn't make sense? Oh boy, here we go. Just a quick Google search gives us this. A lot of red blood. I mean, that's kinda creative. Inklings and octolings swim in ink, but now it's blood. I picked out one from DeviantArt to read called Splatoon Creepypasta, The Bloodlings. You can check it out if you want. Link in the description. I read it. It's, interesting to say the least. In summary, it's about inklings that shoot blood and cause hell, and eventually, the blood consumed the player's inkling. At least, that's what I thought it was about. I got tired while reading it, okay? I had a quick glance at some other ones that I'll link in the description as well. They all seem to follow a theme of blood or red ink, the game talking to the player, and some demonic stuff. Unfortunately, there was no hyper-realistic eyes or blood or picking up a game from a garage sale. If I had read these years ago when I was younger, I may have been scared by it, but I don't know. Reading them now is just like they're mediocre, they're okay, and that's okay. But this next entry isn't. Hashtag Free Melee Fiasco. Nintendo cancelled the Splatoon 2 North American Open Tournament Finals livestream in December of 2020 because teams were actively showing support for the hashtag. They also wanted to enter the tournament with hashtag-inspired names. Nintendo is weirdly authoritarian when it comes to their IPs. Stuff like this seems to happen most when speaking out against one of their questionable decisions or messing around with their games. You know, I get that legally, they can stop the Melee tournament and Splatoon tournament live streams. But just because you can do something, it doesn't mean you need to. And it really blew up in Nintendo's face because everyone dropped out of the tournament. The players made their own event and they live streamed it without Nintendo. It had the most viewers any Western Splatoon event has ever had, and the prize pool, which was gathered up through donations, was the highest ever for a Western Splatoon tournament. That's 2 records broken without the help of Nintendo. That's really good for the players and fans. I love seeing when people come together for a good cause. Sure, it's not the most important thing, but it's still nice to see. On a brighter note from Nintendo, we have the Splatoon Mess Fest. This was an event held in Santa Monica, California. There were celebrities there, demos of Splatoon 1 for people to play, but most importantly, the obstacle course. I love obstacle courses, and goddamn, this one looks like a lot of fun. You got people jumping through tires of ink, shooting stuff, and just sliding around. Unfortunately, the participants did not have the ability to turn into squids. Such a shame. Squid Sister and Off the Hook Amiibo Secret Concert Myth. In Splatoon 1, you can unlock a total of 7 Squid Sister concests with the Callie and Marie amiibos. 5 of these are Squid Sister concests and the other 2 are solo concests, 1 for each Squid Sister cousin. In Splatoon 2, Off the Hook amiibos unlock some themes for the Squid Beats 2 machine. Plus you can take photos with Off the Hook as well, which is pretty cool, and you also get some gear correlating to Pearl and Marina. Using the Callie and Marie amiibos gives you the Hero Replica gear set and the Armor Replica gear set from Splatoon 1. You can also take photos with them. They don't give you any sort of secret Squid Sister and Off the Hook collab concert or anything, and just as the entry states, this was just a myth. Do you by any chance own any Callie and Marie amiibos? Because if you do, you're kind of sitting on a gold mine. Squid Sister samples in single player and Octo Expansion OST. Who would have thought that the biggest Inkopolis duo would have their songs sampled? So let's have a look at some that I think are interesting. Turquoise October is a band from both Splatoon games. They're also presumably made up exclusively of Octarians. They have a new album in Splatoon 2 that you can hear when you're playing the hero mode. Remember, Kelly joined up with the Octarians before the events of Splatoon 2, and because of that, we have new Kelly-inspired music. The girl from Inkopolis. Gee, I wonder who that refers to. Kelly, and her vocals were sampled from the Squid Sisters song Ink Me Up. Here, take a listen. Now the song Shooting Starfish, we have even more sampling, specifically from Maritime Memory. Maritime Memory has samples from other songs too.
Would you mind getting a Coca-Cola? I'd like some piss up.
Moving on to the Octo expansion, there's Calamari Incantation sampling in the Deep Sea Metro subway car. Now this one is interesting. So the theme in the subway car changes depending on how many things you have. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and if you've completed the expansion. In the completed the expansion version, you can hear a quiet, delicate sounding Calamari Incantation played in beat with the song. However, this might be a little different to sampling. Sound director Minegishi confirms that the song is an auditory hallucination from Agent 8, and in a melody of their mind that grows stronger as more of their memories return. Take a listen. Calamari Incantation and probably its alternate versions too have so much power. So if we can hear the inner melody of Agent 8, does that mean we're also listening to it in the secret Agent 3 fight? Oh my god, this blurs the line between what is diegetic and non-diegetic. You know, music that we and the other characters can hear and or interact with versus what we can only hear. Is everything diegetic in some way, or is it only some things? Just as a special mention, it seems like the Turquoise October song for Octo Cannon's World 5 samples Off the Hook song as a Hughes.
Yep, I have this box over here though.
Maybe they're a fan of Off the Hook, or maybe it's the other way around. Marina has turquoise tips in her hair and on her fingers. Turquoise October has turquoise in the band's name, so it could go either way. I don't really know if any of those have a correlation, but it's a cool observation. So you see, samples are like onions. They have lots of layers to them. Speaking of layers, remixes. I just want to point something out. Bomb Rush Blush was performed by Kelly. DJ Octavio remixed it and featured Kelly in the song. He also called it Bomb Rush Blush. Very original. And then DJ Octavio remixed his Bomb Rush Blush remix and featured Kelly and Marie in it. That song is called Title Rush. What a very polite music battle. Sticking to the topic of DJ Octavio, Octavio is stuck in squid form. Octopus form. In Splatoon 1, Sunken Scroll 16, we can see who we believe to be DJ Octavio in his bipedal form, and he's talking to a younger Captain Cuttlefish. Check out this image of them fighting from Marina's chat log from the expansion. It's crazy cool. So he has one, and it's assumed that he's stuck in his octopus form. Why? My theory is that it's because he's so old, he's lost the ability to do so. If Captain Cuttlefish is drying out, then that explains why he's never in squid form. Maybe it's the opposite for Octavio. His bipedal form is suffering, so he never goes back to it. It really does seem involuntary. Squid and octopus style forms are for moving in ink. I mean, we can't even stand properly if we use them, nor can we shoot. But he seems to be able to do some complicated stuff in octo form, which shows that he may have just adapted to it completely. He merely lives with the pain. Tofu, Rabbit, and Mario builds. Before we had the Inklings and Octolings we all love, we had Tofu, Rabbits, and Mario. When Splatoon was first being conceptualized, big tofu-looking blocks were playable characters. They would hide in the ground and emerge when you wanted them to shoot. It doesn't really look like they're shooting ink though. It looks more like they're spraying tofu juice or something. And wow, grey versus white. Very colorful. Clearly, tofu didn't work, so the only logical step was rabbits. Duh. But actually, rabbits are territorial, so having them fight over turf was a solid idea. The hiding in ink mechanic was here too, kind of. Instead of just phasing into the floor, rabbits could hide in their shirts. That's actually kind of creative. This rabbit concept was used for a while, and we even have some fresh concept art and models made of them. But there was one thing that didn't make any sense. Why were rabbits shooting ink at each other? I can sort of understand why tofu might, but it could be the rabbit juices?
It's a burger knife.
No, so the rabbits were scrapped for the only logical concept, Mario characters. If I had seen this in 2014, I would have told you that Mario with guns is crazy. But we have this. And this. Mario with guns didn't quite stick, so they thought long and hard. Another challenge they had was what to do with walls, and then they came up with the squid idea. It all clicked. Ink, squids, swimming up walls, reloading ink. Ah yes, the inklings we all know and love. Wait. Oh, what? You can't get that shirt in the game. Ah, must have been cut last minute or something. Now, if you want to learn more about these prototype builds and the overall development of Splatoon, check out this Beta 64 video if you can. It explains everything, and I would highly recommend it. Link in description. The Inkling language is decipherable. Alright everyone, sit tight, this is gonna be a wild ride. There's a written Inkling language found in both games. It sort of resembles the English and Japanese language, but oh my god, it is so inconsistent. As an example, this says on air. Check out how the A looks here. Now here's cat. The A looks very different. There's even a language for the Octarians. I'll explain that in a bit, but because of all this inconsistency with the languages, deciphering it has become impossible. Like, what does this even mean? Look at all of these letters. But there's some very interesting points I want to talk about regarding deciphering the music of Splatoon. The first person I thought of when writing this was Caitlin Coy. Now, if you don't know who that is, she's a YouTuber that mainly makes Splatoon content. She's made a lot of fan content, like Octoprism, which is an Octoling-style news program and music duo. It's pretty interesting, and it's great to see someone making content like this. She also live streams quite a bit, but that's not the focal point here. These are Vimo Productions. If you've watched my Fall Guys Iceberg video, which if you haven't, I recommend watching it after this video because I think it's pretty damn good, you would have noticed that I had lyrics present for the music inspired by Splatoon part. They were the ones from Caitlin's Spicy Calamari Incantation and Fly Octo Fly Ebb and Flow music videos. So does this mean that the Inkling language is decipherable? No. Caitlin actually helped me out with this one, so shoutouts to her. Basically, the language is all gibberish, even the Octoling language. I was told to check out the Ebb and Flow Octo lyrics because of the way the lyrics are written. The Splatoon wiki had highlighted Pearl and Marina's parts in their respective colors. If you have a PhD in Japanese, you'll notice that Pearl's parts are written in hiragana, and Marina's parts are written in katakana. Both syllabaries share the same phonemic inventory, but katakana is used to transcribe foreign words to Japanese. This means that Marina, an Octoling, is probably speaking a different language to the Inkling one. What does this have to do with anything? Well, I thought it was interesting, but it also plays into the gibberish. Because coincidentally, the way this Japanese gibberish is structured creates the illusion of being able to hear actual words. Auditory pareidolia, the illusion of hearing lyrics created by our brain's never-ending pursuit to understand undecipherable gibberish using similar sounds found in real words. How could you? Wow. By the way, I made the Inkling/Octoling sound by making noises and doing this with my mouth. You're welcome. However, I believe that some gibberish is intentionally similar sounding to real-world words. Nasty Majesty opens up with... It sounds a lot like Nasty. Ebb and Flow Octo has... which sounds a lot like Saving the World. Calamari Incantation has... which sounds like, you need to hear our song. I could go on and on, and yes, of course, everyone interprets the gibberish in different ways because of language and individuality. But these real-world lyrics I showed you make sense for the context of the songs. But then again, my auditory pareidolia may be going off the charts. So no, the lyrics aren't decipherable. Instead, our brains create an illusion of deciphered lyrics. Also, yeah, do check out Caitlin's content when you can. I'm sure many of you are fans of her work anyway. Links in description. sanitized octolings are zombies. I already explained that when a creature is sanitized by Tartar's primordial ooze, it'll lose its free will, and there's some proof that it'll retain some memories too. There's something pretty major I left out about the sanitized octolings and other sanitized creatures. And when I mean left out, I mean I read this entry, realized I had written about it during the mind control entry at the start of the video, and then removed it to talk about it now. This stuff is pretty sad. Marina reveals to Agent 8 and the gang that these sanitized creatures show no sign of life. They have no pulse. Most of the sanitized creatures that we find are Octarians. It seems like they can never escape indoctrination and mind control, especially the Octolings, who are forced to wear mind control shades. Imagine if an Octoling like Marina, who escaped Octarian society after listening to calamari incantation, got thrown into the deep sea metro just to be drowned in primordial ooze and to be a zombie forever. Zombies are in Splatoon. That doesn't bode well for dead fish and all the other sanitized creatures. But it's weird, whenever we defeat one of them, glitchy looking effects pop out of them. Could they also have some sort of technology inside them too? I'm not sure. In good news, we've also seen that creatures can be desanitized. This happens to Agent 3 in the Octo expansion and to Ryder from the Splatoon manga. But it only seems like partial sanitization is reversible, as seen by theirs. Anyway, something else I chose not to share until now is that the Deep Sea Metro is run by Kamabor Corporation. This is the company's logo. Does it look familiar? It should, because it's everywhere in the expansion. This testing and zombification is a corporate effort, and they have a DJ. Whether certain employees know the extent of what is happening is unknown, but Tartar was probably the one running the show. I say was because Sea Cucumber tells us that Kamabro Corp doesn't exist anymore after beating Tartar. So after beating Tartar, what happens to the zombies? Are they free? Will they go ballistic? Or will they just melt away? Agent 8 was in Octo Valley, probably making his way to Inkopolis after hearing calamari incantation during the events of Splatoon 1. They're attacked by Agent 3 and Captain Cuttlefish, but during the battle, something else attacks them and knocks them into the Deep Sea Metro. Oh god, could calamari incantation have had the unintentional role in giving Tartar Octolings as test subjects? As Octolings escaped, they could have been attacked and thrown into the metro. It's an interesting thought, but anyway, Agent 8 lost their memories after waking up in the metro. When we go to customize Agent 8, we get this character screen. Location of the Octo expansion character selector is... Where is this? As we can see, Agent 8 is submerged in green liquid, with green muck covering parts of their body. It looks a lot like the primordial ooze. As we escape to the surface, we'll have to go through the belly phase, stage 3. In Japanese, the stage translates to stomach sanitization site. This is where it all happens, the sanitization process. My theory is that the character selection screen is in this level, or at least near this location. I wouldn't say it's too much of a stretch to think that. If creating Octarian/Octoling zombies for tests happens here, then maybe participant preparation happens here as well. This liquid we're submerged in could be something like this. If you have a theory on where the character creator screen is, leave a comment. I'd be curious to know. The size of the Deep Sea Metro. This place is huge. There are a total of 85 stations, 4 of which have the Thangs, and 1 central station. We only get to play a small section of each station. There's so much more out there in the distance, even above us and even below us. So these places are all connected by the train lines, and if the level stages are all this big, then there has to be a fair bit of distance between each station, right? I wouldn't count the escape stages as the Deep Sea Metro because it isn't in the actual metro. It's more like in the deep sea. Speaking of, these 7 escape stages are enormous too. There's just so much space and there's stuff everywhere. But we also have to think about the sizing of everything around us. We have floating remnants of the human era all around the game. Compared to the Inklings and Octolings, these are big, and they aren't even that much shorter than the average human height. So why would all this floating stuff be huge? Maybe humans used to be enormous in the Splatoon universe, or maybe it's just some weird illusion, or maybe they're just big replicas. But basically, my point is that the Deep Sea Metro is either huge or it's huge! Now to finish off this video, we have the lockers at the secret final boss are agent numbers. At the central station, you'll notice lockers numbered 0 to 9 at one end of the platform. After completing all 80 tests, locker 8 opens up and then we can fight Inner Agent 3. So obviously, Agent 8 is number 10,008, so it makes sense that we get the 8th locker. But why have so many lockers if we're the only creature participating in the tests? Well, just like the entry states, it could correlate with agent numbers. I do think that is an interesting thought, but I don't think that Tata was preparing for the new Squidbeak Splatoon. I'd say it's so we can remember what number our test subject number ends with. If we were number, say, 4385, our locker would be number 5. But maybe, just maybe, there was more than one participant active at once during some stage of testing. As an example, test subjects number 24, 25, and 26 could have participated together. Probably not doing the test together, but doing testing by themselves. So obviously, they can't just share a locker, and this could mean that up to 10 test subjects could participate at once. It's also good to point out that Agent 3 had a CQ-80 device, but it was an employee version, so they probably tried to figure out an escape route without heading to the quote-unquote promised land. That's all just speculation though, but what is insinuated is that a number correlates with a locker. And that's a wrap for this video, part 1 of the Splatoon Iceberg. Thanks for watching. Also thanks to everyone that helped me out with the making of this video. That includes my good friend Big Marsh for his help with reading entries. It's always a pleasure to have him on the channel. Check out the content on his channel if you can. Thanks to some other good friends, Haru and Kaibaku, for all the amazing illustrated stills and animations I used in the video. As you've seen throughout this video and the Zelda Iceberg, these dudes are extremely talented. Many thanks to JG Ultra and my mate Guzma Lord for help with some research, NW Player 123 for helping to explain our process on playable Octolinks for Splatoon 1, and Caitlin Coy for explaining the process behind her lyrics and the languages found in Splatoon. All of their links will be in the description. In part 2, we'll be exploring the depths of layers 4 to 6. It's only going to get crazier from here, believe me. And I hope you'll stay tuned for the next video. Leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you feel like doing so. Until next time, stay fresh.
It must be too, Tetris and too strong.
It just cuts through, like...
And broad. Like if I was to put like ketchup on the burger, it'd be like, you know, really small. And it's like, it'd be probably like a quarter of like one of them sachets. I'll leave it like that, in fairness. Yeah, maybe I'll go on. I really won't put much at all. I find it crazy how much so many people like love
Splatoon icebergs.
Like the people who like it love it like crazy.
Get another iceberg.
Some people won't eat anything without
it. Sean was like that. Well, she was.
Splatoon icebergs out there? The answer to that question is yes, which makes sense because despite Splatoon's cute and colorful appearance, it has a lot of lore, some of it with bizarre or creepy implications.
Can't say too much though. I mean, my vinegar.
I felt like many people.
I mean, like if anything covers that, it's vinegar.
Baseless theories because they could be edgy. So I decided to make my own iceberg and further beat this meme to the ground. At first, I just wanted to add some points from some popular icebergs out there that I thought would be fun to explain, and then stack a few things of my own on top of it. Because many of these icebergs were missing weird stuff from the Splatoon art books, especially the Japanese-only Haikai Locker, which I have translated a lot of. But then I went to Twitter for some suggestions and I thought of too many things, and it spiraled out of control. So behold, the ultimate Splatoon lore. I ranked things based on how well known it was, or how cursed it was, and I posted this and I got a lot of questions, and some thought I made things up for clout. I admit some things are worried to sound edgy, but even though I promise everything on this iceberg has some sort of
game I was tempted to get on Steam.
And that's what I'm about to show. Let's begin.
You play as like vampires. It's like a top-down.
The rest of me got this.
It looks a bit like Diablo.
I mean, it's right there in the background.
It kind of plays a bit like Valheim, kind of. Yeah, it's like you're a vampire.
But looking in
you
the
need to like drink blood to survive. There's people around. Like you can build like a castle for yourself, like as your like home base, and like you can't go out there during the day, or you need to stay in the shadows of the trees and stuff. And you hunt down bosses basically. And you get new powers. Like one of them, you kill like an alpha wolf, and you get like a wolf form. You can run around as a wolf then. Another ones just give you other abilities, like and you can drink their blood. Like depending on the blood, the creature that you drink the blood of, you get different kind of abilities from that blood as well. So like you can drink the blood of rats if you're desperate, but like then you end up quite weak. While drinking like human blood, you're kind of stronger, and then drinking like special human blood, you get even stronger again.
And I'll put the onion ring in your bag, because I don't know which one of us is going to have it, but at least yours, it will just put salt in there.
Yeah.
Mine vinegar with salt on there.
That's your onion ring, but
Yeah, we didn't mean on.
So can you really blame them for not
yeah, I
knowing?
don't know.
Still
Probably.
being criticized
We'll see.
for being consumerist.
Onion rings. I really like the idea of them, but like after eating one, you're just like, ooh.
Yeah, I love onion rings, but yeah, in fairness, like, I wish you could literally order 2 onion rings.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's my actual max is 2 onion rings.
Pearl says the F word. In session 9 of Marina's chat room in Octo Expansion, it was revealed that Pearl was in a heavy metal band, and she sang a song that was apparently really vulgar.
So I'm just gonna add up the ingredients separately.
The Squid
That's like
Sisters
just
are not
for the
sisters.
half pounder, just
They're
because
The great
you can't
Zapfish
actually
Easter
just
egg.
find the
During the
half
last minute of a
pounder.
round at Piranha Pit, you can see the great Zapfish
Like a
swimming
half
around.
pounder made half pounder. It's just like half pounder
Splatoon is
frozen
supposed to
fibers.
This is at the tip of the iceberg because, although it's cursed, it's the one fact I see thrown around all the time to shock people who have no idea about Splatoon lore. Splatoon takes place during the Moth era, which is 12,000 years after the human race went extinct due to the rising sea level caused by global climate change.
And do you know why
Remnants
it's
of human
called that?
civilization, including human race, are a fun fact of
Very
penguins.
top of it.
By extension of that, mammals are extinct except for Judd. This is because Judd was cryogenically frozen 12,000 years ago. This extinction of mammals is another fact often stated in the game and by the developers. Yes, I think that includes marine mammals. And no, I refuse to accept the Octarian power crisis. Octarians aren't just one's bad guys. After losing the Great Turtle 100 years ago, the Octarians were forced to live underground. Sunken Scroll number 6 reveals that their homes are deteriorating and they're suffering from a power crisis. They're an oppressed species trying to survive and have a very good reason for taking the Great Step.
You don't say I had about 400 calories of chips.
In the first game, hackers were able to make the enemy obsolete playable. All the layer had some issues. The fact that the models had unique eyes not seen at all during the single-player campaign, and the hair was textured and graded to function properly with different ink colors, raised suspicion that there were plans to make offering playable.
And I want to throw out this card box from Asia Market. It might come in handy for some
I think it was one of the
craft.
little pages, but I do remember seeing some people ask, where does the
I'd say I had like 450 calories of onion rings.
To be honest,
there's airborne microbes.
like, I mean, that's sad. Well,
Optimal asymmetry. The left and right ears of the
So a big dinner,
if there's one, what you chef it was very small.
1700 calories.
Oh,
and free will of the mind. This is just a reference to the bizarre fourth wall breaking piece of dialogue. Little Judd is a clone.
Okay, so I think the box is just great for some Halloween craft.
Judd did not survive.
Because a half pounder was 537 just for the burger. For the meat, like.
Little Judd has been clearly
If I think that's right.
Seems like a lot, but then it's hard to know. You don't know what type of beefs they're using. You know.
See, this is like done by container, so I'm just guessing that there's 4 burgers in a container.
Right.
And what are you saying then? That you ate 4 of them?
That I ate a quarter of a container.
Oh, okay.
And he also says, oh, you're still working to it, which, you know, is another
Appreciate it.
portion. Octavio's humanoid form. It seems that some people forget that DJ Octavio is actually an octoling with both an octopus and a humanoid form.
I gotta go with it anyway. It still only puts me at 2,344 calories.
Yeah, well, at least you took it easy for all of the days.
Yeah.
Aside from that.
Samanid Octarian Treaty. This treaty is mentioned in the Samanid Field Guide and in the second art book. Basically, the Samanid exchange their power eggs and in return receive Octarian technology. We can see evidence of this with how power eggs are scattered around the game's story mode, and in Salmon Run, the gorilla uses the same tracking technology as the Flutters, the Gushers are the same, and Scrappers use Octarian shields. Offensive gesture from Inkling in Mario Kart 8. In the first version of Mario Kart 8 for the Switch, the Inkling girl makes this gesture, which is offensive in parts of Europe and Latin America. This was quickly patched to an inoffensive fist pump. Splatoon was a Mario spin-off. From the humble Tofu prototype, Splatoon went through many stages of figuring out what kind of characters the game should use. One idea pitched was for the game to be a Mario spin-off, taking advantage of Yoshi's many different colors. Of course, this was scrapped. Rabbits was a long-lived idea for what the main characters of the game should be, leading to the Rabbit prototype. It was scrapped once the devs realized squids made much more sense. The fox and tanuki statues in the plaza, as well as Judd, are all remnants of when the game was centered on rabbits. I guess the devs liked them so much that they figured out how to work them into the squid world. Laughing statues. This is a rather infamous Easter egg. In Splatoon 1's Museum del Filmcino, during Splatfest, the statues laugh. Ringing phones.
It's good for every game, it tells you, even if you're not on the Steam Deck, whether something is compatible with the Steam Deck.
Oh, that's very handy. And in general, most things are.
Most things are. Yeah, like it'll tell you like a quarter of them are fully playable, but then if you go in, a quarter of like your games, like, but then if you go into them, there are a lot more of them are actually playable than what it says, like, just they haven't been tested yet, or maybe like there's one issue in testing, or they're not like unplayable, you know, like they're playable as they are, but
apparently he has no idea doing something else.
Exactly, because Elder Scrolls is considered unplayable by Steam, but it is playable, yeah.
Or musical artist attached to it, as well as album art to go with it.
St. Dimphus is looking for a special needs assistant.
While the official Twitter and Tumblr has given us a little bit of information, Icon Walker expands on this a lot more.
Nice to see that.
Scrap hairstyle concepts.
Yeah, there's been a few actually the past while, a few
hairstyles that
SNL
never really
positions
made it
shown
into
up.
the final game. Here's a few of them. I thought this guy with different hair was pretty interesting. DJ Real Soul Identity. DJ Real Soul is the musician behind the music that you hear in the shops. The identity of DJ Real Soul was never actually confirmed, but based on the possible shoe pun in the name and Sunken Scroll number 6 in Splatoon 2, DJ Real Soul is probably Bisque. Attempted contact with aliens. Sunken Scroll 22 has a parody of the Voyager Golden Record and talks about how Inkling sent this disc into space in search of other intelligent life. Top half of Skull Bandana. Despite not being able to see it in game, the Skull Bandana has a top half. This seemingly contradicts with the fact that Inklings don't have bones. The reason why this is fully textured is unknown. Fully modeled unreleased gear. There are several pieces of gear that never made it into the final game. Some of it was just for beta testing purposes, some of it was redesigned and given different coloration, and some of it was completely scrapped. An infamous example of this is this Native American headdress, which likely would have stirred up some controversy. Another infamous one is the Nils mask, which is kind of creepy, but I wish we got it. There's also the Judd mask, which appears in the Briscoe manual, but never made it in the final game. Splatoon 1's Octobeat armor and boots seem to have been planned for release for Salmon Run gear, but for some reason they never were released, so unfortunately we only have the goggles from that set. One that I find particularly bizarre is how the Tentacles helmet, a gear item from the first game, never made it into Splatoon 2. It was fully modeled and even shown off for a promo for a Splatoon 2 update, but for some reason it never got released into the game. Captain Cuttlefish can't produce ink. In the art of Splatoon, it's mentioned that Inklings past the age of 50 begin to practice a ritual called sun drying in order to extend their lifespan. This explains why the captain is about 130 years old. A piece of dialogue in Octo expansion confirms that Inklings lose their ink as they dry out. Sanitization creates zombies. In Octo expansion, sanitization causes a loss of free will, and Marina notes that sanitized Octarians don't have a pulse or signs of life. In a developer interview for the first anniversary of Splatoon 2, a very direct comparison to zombies is made. Inconsistent traffic flow. What side of the road do we drive on in Inkopolis? Moray Towers? Left side. Starfish Main Stage? Left side. Okay, so far so good. I see a pattern. It's like Japan. Arowana Mall. The right side. Albacore Hotel. Also on the right. Sheldon in the Octavio boss fight cutscene drives on the right side as well, so I'm leaning towards the right side being correct. But yeah, inconsistencies. Active bear area. These signs around the ruins of Ark Polaris are one of the only instances of a real-world language used in-game, showing that it's a remnant of the human era. What does it mean? Is it related to Mr. Grizz? Did a bear attack the humans that were here? Who knows? Hopefully the next game has answers. Mari's pet. In Octo Canyon, you can see that Mari has a pet in a cage. All we know about it is that Callie caught it and gave it to Mari. We don't know what species it is. Seriously, what is it? 8-ball ranked mode. Splatoon 2 has a few scrapped ranked modes. There's a scrapped ranked mode that involves pushing an 8-ball towards the goal on the opposing team's side. It seems pretty similar to Rainmaker to me. There's another ranked mode called Rocket, which basically involves shooting at a rocket, and the more damage it takes, the amount of times it's launched determines how far it goes to the other team's side. Also, the rocket drops a weapon called a rocket nozzle. The models used in these videos are placeholders, so this isn't exactly how it would have looked. The Book of Madai. This is a cryptic religious prophecy from the Sunken Scroll 17 in the second game. When smoke rises from the 7 rings, the pink fish will emerge from the sea, devouring all the creatures of the land.
Very interesting, isn't
The Book
it?
of Madai, chapter 10, verse 10. We have no idea what this means. Illegally modified weapons. From the appearance and how overpowered they are, I think it's pretty clear that the Grisco weapons are illegally modified, and this message from Grisco Industries really hammers it in. But this isn't the only instance of weapon modification. In the second art book, there's a concept for an illegally modified E-liter. Inklings went to the moon. If you were to zoom in on the moon that appeared during some Splatfest in the second game, you can see there's this little squid-shaped thing. Octarian spies at Manta Maria. In the second art book, there's concept art for this boat intended to patrol the waters around Manta Maria. It's an Octoling spy boat disguised as a fishing boat. However, I checked the stage recently, and I don't think this made it into the game itself. All I could see was the sailboat, the weird military-looking ship, and the jamstack boat. I even tried looking through the game footage from before the update that had the jamstack boat, and still nothing. Maybe it's in Salmon Run, but all I've seen in the background are the same-looking fishing boats. If you can find this exact boat in game, please let me know in the comments. Turquoise October backwards messages. In music by Turquoise October in Splatoon 2, which is the fictional band behind the music of Octo Valley and Octo Canyon, samples of Callie's music can be heard when some songs are played backwards. This is pointing towards Callie's brainwashing. DJ Sango. In Haikata Walker, it's mentioned that Agent 3 takes up rapping and becomes a DJ called Sango. There's some concept art throughout Haikata Walker that shows Agent 3 in his DJ outfit, but it was never mentioned in game as far as I'm aware. So I like to imagine that this is something that they started doing after the event of the expansion. Pearl was a member of Sashimori. Sashimori is one of the fictional bands behind the music that we hear in Turf Wars. I think the song of theirs is pretty memorable. This band doesn't have a vocalist. It's actually this young octoling named Paul remixing Ancient Human Records, which is why the vocals don't have the same gurgly quality that sea creatures have. However, before Paul was in the game, they were actually a wall of sound metal band with a singer with a very powerful voice. They kicked the singer out though for being too domineering. Sound familiar? In an interview, Splatoon creator Hisashi Nogami was asked if Pearl was their old singer. He said to leave it to your imagination. I think that's a yes. The power core is a Zapfish egg. In two of the escape phases in Octo expansion, we see this energy core which has the face of a Zapfish. Personally, I was a little bit confused about where this stood in the life cycle of a Zapfish because we do have this diagram in Schellendorf Institute, and this thing doesn't match anything on there. I was kind of thinking that maybe it's filling in that question mark spot on the diagram. Well, Hikata Walker confirmed that the core is a Zapfish egg. Mating lures. On the armor in the first game, there's a squid fishing lure attached to it. In the first art book, it's further explained that this lure is a hip accessory designed to attract the opposite sex, and that it's an item almost everyone has in this world. Just an interesting little tidbit about squid culture. Salmonid are not barbarians. Despite appearances, Salmonid are intelligent species, as evidenced with their ability to trade with the Octarians, build and operate machinery, and produce complex music, among other things. They also have their own culture, and a seemingly high regard for the natural order of life and death. There's an interview which I translated that outlines their cultural attitudes in more detail, but I'm not going to go too into this because I already made another video about it, so if you're interested in obscure Salmonid lore, go watch that video. Inklings are cannibals. This is the wording everyone throws around, but it's really not that edgy or weird in the context of the Splatoon world. Maybe. There's one interview with Nogami where he talks about what food Inklings eat, stating that they don't eat the meat of mammals since they're extinct, and also no milk for the same reason. He mentions that they eat veggies, birds, and fish, and that Inklings could eat squids, which is what led to the cannibalism comparisons. But these fish and squids exist in the same non-sentient form as they do in our world, and it's clear that although Inklings are squids, they've definitely evolved to be much different than their counterparts in the ocean. Relation-wise, it'd be more akin to us eating monkeys, except it's like the normal thing because fish normally eat each other anyways. Like, oh, Krusty Sean, he's feeding you his brother, and oh no, he's feeding you parts of his own body. Like, no, there's shrimp in the ocean. It's the same form as in real life. Tying into all that, Nogami also talks about how the food chain exists in the Splatoon world as it does in real life. Like, there's all these predatory fish species walking around on the surface. There's no good reason for all of them to suddenly become vegans for some weird moral reasons. Like, no, they're going to eat fish like they always have. And if we're throwing in morals, eating fish from the ocean would probably be the more morally okay way of doing that. However, exactly how the food chain functions in Splatoon is open to interpretation according to Nogami, and it seems like these darker interpretations are not entirely out of the question. In another interview, he says that in Japan, we think of squids and octopi as being maybe natural enemies is too strong, but they compete against each other. They use each other as food sometimes, and we've continued those thoughts as we made our world. The world he's talking about being the Splatoon world, of course. So maybe the sentient species can eat each other? More on that in a second. Salmonid meat in Micromart. Salmon fillets can be seen in the stage Micromart. In an interview, Splatoon director Seita Inoue comments on this with, "The relationship between Inklings, Salmonid, and jellyfish has not changed since before they evolved. And although Inklings don't eat jellyfish, that's not limited to Salmonid. So that does seem to imply that this is Salmonid meat." Gen 83. This is just Marina's name when she was in the Octarian army. This raises some questions like, what does gen mean? Generation? If it does mean generation, then who's the other 82 generations? I loved Octo expansion, don't get me wrong, but my biggest critique is that it gave us this interesting new setting and gave us a very character-centered story that raised even more questions and gave us very few answers. We still don't really know much about Octarian culture after all these years, and that kind of sucks. Lake Biwa map. There's a brand that you can see throughout Splatoon 2 that has a map outline of something in its logo. It's actually Lake Biwa, which is a giant lake near the Kyoto Prefecture where Nintendo's headquarters are. Something I don't think I've ever seen anyone else point out, though, is that the small Inkling language text underneath seems to read Shiga, which is the name of the prefecture that Lake Biwa is located in. Carla was a denizen of the deep. Carla is the scaly-foot gastropod bassist for the band Sashimori. Apparently she's very silent and nothing is known about her past or even how old she is. Scalyfoot gastropods are a deep-sea species, and in some concept art in Haikata Walker, she was going to be someone you'd see on the deep-sea metro. Of course, this idea was scrapped, and her design was reused to make her a band member. The jellyfish hive mind. Jellyfish are weird. For one thing, they reproduce asexually, and we have this very bizarre piece of visual art depicting this. But they're also all part of a hive mind. In an interview with Splatoon director Hisashi Nogami, he says that the jellyfish aren't really individuals. It's more like they're all parts of a larger organism. So even when you see them playing in the pool, or when you spot two jellyfish lovers hanging out by the poolside, it isn't that they're actually jellyfish in love, but more like they want to behave like or impersonate what it would be like if there were jellyfish lovers. Nogami also mentions the jellyfish that watch the Inklings battle. What if they are actually the sponsors behind these battles? Maybe they're the ones supporting the whole turf war industry. So jellyfish may be pretty powerful in the Splatoon world. Mari is related to Tony Kensa. In Splatoon 2, Mari's kimono bears a family crest which, according to the second art book, belongs to the Kensaki family. Tony Kensa, the gear brand with the cool black and white clothing, is named Tataki Kensaki in Japanese. The Kensaki family on this crest may be the same Kensaki family behind the clothing brand. Deciphered Inkling language. Some of the Inkling language does resemble real words, be it in English or in Japanese, but most of it is straight up gibberish. There does seem to be some internally consistent fonts, however. In Haikata Walker, there's a page showing the fonts used in Octo expansion, but for the first time we actually get an Inkling language font. Using this as a reference, we can actually read some of the text used in game. Some of it is sensible but corrupted, and some of it is weird English placeholder text. Another Tumblr user actually deciphered one of the fonts used in game, and that showed it was also internally consistent for the most part. They made a very long post detailing the process and showing examples throughout the game, but unfortunately this post is deleted. I made this quick graphic showing what examples specifically I remember from the deleted post, like from the iShip logo and the claw machine in the square. Numbers 3, 7, 10, 15, 17, 18. Deadfish, the fictional DJ behind much of the music in Octo expansion, numbers her music from 0 to 19. However, for an unknown reason, the numbers I just listed are missing. Arc Polaris was a failed space colonization mission. Arc Polaris is, of course, the name of the ship that crashed in the Samurai stage, the ruins of Arc Polaris. Judging from the English lettering on the ship and the area surrounding, it's heavily implied that this is something that was built by humans. We know that humans tried going underground to survive the rising sea levels and failed, but also these ruins show us that they did try to go into space too, and failed. The Ark in the name is likely in reference to Noah's Ark, and maybe the humans tried to take some animals with them to space, and one of those animals may have been a bear, judging from the active bear area signs scattered around the stage. Who knows? Fax machine origins. This fax machine, which is basically a religious artifact, delivers the Splatfest themes. We do know where the fax machine messages come from. The explanation given is that basically words from our time have, I guess, been recorded, and then those messages fly into space, bounce off a planet, and then return to Earth 12,000 years later. There's still a lot of other questions, such as, where did this fax machine come from? Did it belong to some important human, or is it just a random one that happened to be functioning when the Inklings dug it up? Is there some relevance to the bouncing off a planet thing? Did some humans actually successfully make it into space? Honestly, I think it's more BS Splatoon science to explain how many of the themes can get kind of fourth wall breaking, but I could be wrong. The SOS message. For New Year's in 2020, we received this official piece of art. The reflection in the water resembles SOS, and to prove that this is no coincidence, a closer look at the waves read, "Save our salmon." Unlike some of the other insane theories that come about from official art, this one does really seem to be foreshadowing something plot relevant for the next game. No child labor laws. This one is kind of edgy sounding, but all these 14-year-olds are able to walk right in and work for Briscoe, which is a sketchy job. Also, the Octarian army employs child soldiers. Thousands of dead test subjects. As revealed in the end of Octo expansion, Tartar kills and blends up test subjects in his efforts to collect biomass to create the perfect life form. This is known to those who finished Octo expansion, but it's very disturbing, hence its placement. I originally had this as over 10,000 dead test subjects, And I know I saw some other icebergs say 10,007 because Agent 8 is number 10,008, or 10,006 when remembering Isopadre was also a test subject. But these numbers both aren't really accurate because the only ones who were blended up were the ones who finished all the tests because those were the perfect specimens. A developer interview revealed that many test subjects did not make it to the end and dropped out and presumably were not blended up. So we actually don't know how many test subjects were killed. Not 10,000, but it still has to be a lot. Non-cephalopods can turf. It was revealed in Haikata Walker that Kusei from High Tide Era, Lo from Bottom Feeders, and Ryu Chang from Sashimori all play in a Rainmaker team together. As we know, Rainmaker is an ink-related sport, and these fish guys are not ink-based cephalopods. So there may be alternate means of having non-ink-based creatures to play ink sports, or there's ink-free variants of these games. Pearl destroyed the reef. In a very early trailer for Splatoon 2, we can see that the stage, the reef, looks a bit different. Notably, the bridge is made of wood instead of stone. In a developer interview, it is stated that Pearl's powerful infrastructure-damaging voice is the reason why the bridge is now made of stone. Unused Octarian Executioner. In an early trailer for the first Splatoon game, we can see this odd-looking Octarian design that never made it into the final game. With the black hood, this design feels very reminiscent of an old-timey executioner. The Professor. The Professor is a mysterious, long-dead human. The Professor is the man who cryogenically froze Judd, alongside Lil Judd, ensuring his survival. The AI Commander Tartar also mentions that he was built by a professor, which led some people to theorize that the Professor who froze Judd and the Professor who built Tartar are the same guy. But there's actually no need to theorize this because this is a fact that was confirmed in a developer interview. One of the crate-busting stations in Octo Expansion involves breaking crates into the shape of Judd, which is supposed to hint at this. I don't think the Professor is straight up evil or anything. This dude clearly liked his cat a lot, and his intent when programming Tartar was for the next intelligent life form to not repeat the same mistakes of the human race. It was just Tartar's own loneliness which caused this programming to disregard those intents and become genocidal. I can't help but wonder if there's any other things in Splatoon that'll come up that was also created by this Professor. Agent 8 actually dies. So during the escape phases in Octo Expansion, whenever you die, you notice that there's a lot more panic from Captain Cuttlefish and the like. Unlike the stations, there's no respawning. You actually die. The developer interview confirmed this, saying that when you die in the escape phases, the game goes back in time so you can redo it. Marina, Paul, and Deadfish are all connected. A passage in Haikata Waka directly acknowledges this connection. Rumors float about regarding the relationship between Deadfish, Sashimori's young Octomate DJ Paul, and Marina from Off the Hook. First off, the same thing is drawn on the hats worn by Deadfish and Paul. Are they blood relatives, or do they just like the same brand? Also, Marina and Deadfish are both DJs, so it wouldn't be too surprising if they performed together in the past. Also, apparently, Marina is friends with Paul, according to some Japanese dialogue from the Fan vs. Friends Splatfest. Are you ready to join something bigger than yourself? When you're about to enter the quote-unquote promised land in Octo Expansion, Carter asks if you're ready to join something bigger than yourself. Some Eagle fans noted that this piece of dialogue is weirdly similar to something Mr. Grizz says to you when you first try to get a job at Grizz. Very suspicious. Mr. Grizz's identity. Mr. Grizz's identity
just to
right
correct
now
them while you don't need them, and then when you need
the
them.
next game. It is widely theorized Mr. Grizz is a bear because of his name and the fact that he talks through a bear statue radio, and with all the bear references in the ruins of Ark Polaris. Although there's all these signs pointing to this, personally, I really hope he's not an actual mammalian bear. I would just find that disappointing more than anything. It's the one thing that literally everyone is predicting, and I really want the devs to throw us a curveball in terms of Mr. Grizz's identity. I mean, this dude is trying so hard to keep himself a secret from the players. Why would he have his name and statue just like him? It's just way too on the nose and silly. For all we know, Mr. Grizz isn't even real. There's one dev interview that brings up that Mr. Grizz might not even be monitoring Salmon Run, and his voice is just a text-to-speech thing. And this leads to the possibility of Mr. Grizz being AI, which would be thematically fitting with the "Are you ready to join something bigger than yourself" thing I just talked about. I have a few ideas about Mr. Grizz's identity, but nothing I feel super concrete about just because, of course, I could be wrong. Personally, I like to think he's not even a real guy and just a company persona managed by some shitty figures. As long as he's not a bear, I'll be happy. World War V. What we're told in game is that the rising sea levels from global warming is what caused the mass extinction of all mammals. But a comic in the back of the first art book reveals that it wasn't just gradual global warming alone. Apparently, humans had 5 world wars, and during the last of these world wars, someone launched a nuke into the polar ice caps, which caused the ice to rapidly melt. Labor strikes at Sturgeon Shipyard. In a description in the second art book for Sturgeon Shipyard, it's mentioned that the aging facilities have led to poor working conditions, which has led to frequent strikes. There's a few posters and a newspaper in-game that seems to reference this. At least 20 different countries exist. Horabi, the Octoling beatsmith from the band Despair, has a biography in Haikata Walker. It's mentioned that he has toured over 20 different countries in a single year. So yes, this is direct proof that there are many different countries in the Splatoon world. Giant doors in the Deep Sea Metro. In the Deep Sea Metro, we can see the subway doors, and this door in Central Station, for example, is very large. I do remember seeing some people pointing this out when the game was released, and just how weird it is. There is a passage in Haikata Walker that explains this. Basically, the Deep Sea denizens have much bigger heads and bodies compared to the Octolings, so the infrastructure has changed to accommodate them. The Moses Schellendorf posters. Scattered throughout the Deep Sea Metro are these posters, which bear a heavy resemblance to Sheldon's grandpa, Moses Schellendorf. Is this proof that he's still alive in the Deep Sea Metro? Or is it just a cool art movement? Or are these posters not even of him and it's just some other old dude? Inkopolis Square crime rates. In a passage in the second art book, it's revealed that Inkopolis Square used to not be the best neighborhood, and it was a place where minor crimes would frequently occur. That is, up until it was renovated about 1.5 years before the beginning of Splatoon 2. Tartar's corpse is on Mount Nantai. This is one where it's kind of edgy sounding, but there's a bit of truth to it. In this panel from the Splatoon manga, Marina puts Tartar's busted foam body on Mount Nantai, which is a place that's been referenced a few times in game but we've never been able to see. I'm a bit wary about calling stuff from the manga canon, but there doesn't really seem to be anything that contradicts this yet. However, some people have noticed this old phone in Octo Canyon. I don't think this is Tartar, as the events of Octo Canyon and Octo Expansion are independently of each other, and I think the phone would have been more busted up if it was Tartar. I think this was just foreshadowed to Octo Expansion, with the oxidization of the copper being a similar color to sanitized ink. Clownfish are second-class citizens. This one is also kind of edgy sounding, but hear me out. Paruko, who is the sea anemone girl from the band Chirpy Chips, has this black clownfish on her head. According to a passage in Haikata Walker, this clownfish is dying of neglect. This is a bit alarming, as we know that clownfish are sentient, with how Annie's clownfish, Mo, would say rude things to you in the first game. So are clownfish just treated like pets even though they're intelligent? What is going on here? Dead clam graffiti. You know this cute-looking blobfish graffiti that you can see around Inkopolis? It is not a blobfish. It is a clam. And most of them are dead. In Haikata Walker, there's an interview with the fictional artist behind this piece of graffiti, as well as with another graffiti artist who drew intestines on everything during Splatoon. Remember that? I think this interview gives some really interesting insight on how Inkopolis culture has a different definition of what's appealing or cute. Like, for example, it's mentioned that in the Splatoon version of the Olympics, they had an endearing mascot, which was a parasitic nematode. This is probably one of the most obscure things on this iceberg in my opinion, because as far as I know, I'm the only one who translated this, and not a lot of people read it, because it is so long. So, I'll link it to you in the description if you want to read it. Judd is an immortal telepath. Judd is weird. This is a cat that is 12,000 years old. The artist Splatoon 2 confirms that the professor injected Judd with an immortality serum. So yes, the Judd and those 2,000-year-old drawings in one of the Sun's scrolls is the same cat and not a clone from several generations ago. It's also confirmed that he telepathically talks to the Inklings, which makes sense when you look at his dialogue in game. He just gives you a meow, and then what he's actually saying is in parentheses. Judd is also very wise. According to a comic telling his backstory in the first art book, his innate ability to judge how much a side is winning was used during the time of humans, by what looks to be some world leaders or military generals deciding where to launch some missiles. Unexplained geomagnetism. There's a few pieces of dialogue in Splatoon 2 that mentions mysterious magnetic fields which affect Inkling's ability to super jump and salmon run. It affects Pearl's phone. It distorts time and space, stuff like that. The reason for this has not been explained at all. I actually made another video talking about this more in depth, so if you want to hear my theory about this, go watch that. Another video concept. This is something that's somewhat well known, but it sure is creepy. God, look at that thing. All the fake eyes and teeth of the blender, the sausage arms, the meat grinder. This would have been such a cool final boss. There's a few other concepts that are not quite as scary, but they are pretty cool too. Nil's statue digestive system. You know how all the escape phases in opto-expansion are named after internal organs? Want to see how that looks on the outside? Yay. I think a more accurate way of describing what I had in mind at this point would be Nil's statue exposed internal organs. I'll talk more about the digestive system thing in a bit though. Fun fact though, the Japanese names actually tell functions of the different areas. The coccyx phase is the prison. The Bailey stage is the control zone. The belly phase is the disinfection site. The intestinal phase is called the hormone corridor. The diaphragm phase is the control tower. The peristalsis phase is called the flow passage. And the spinal phase is called the spinal central hole. The comic book logo is designed to look like poop. This is why I called the image in the previous point the digestive system. The caption on the previous piece kind of translates to an image showing how the internal structure of the human body has been applied to that of the Nil statue. While looking at the statue, I can't help but wonder, probably just something that gets digested through its body? The rumor that the Nil slogan represents a stylish turtle suddenly has some truth to it. Some handwritten text nearby reads, then digest everything and well and I'll with an arrow pointing to a turd. The phrase I translated to stylish turd was kakoru, so if you speak Japanese, take that as you will. Great turf war weapons of mass destruction. This came from a point on a different iceberg that I saw that was instead about Octarian weapons of mass destruction, which I assumed was an entry reference to the great octo weapons and how those were made for war. But I didn't think that was obscure bottom of the iceberg worthy. So I expanded this to include what the Inklings have created. In the comic in the back of the first art book, we actually get this rough depiction of the Great Turf War. We can see this funny little Octarian aircraft carpet bombing whatever's below, but we also get these very cryptic, massive squid things imposed over a burning cityscape, which gives off a very War of the Worlds feeling. I'm quite sure these are supposed to be Inkling weapons of mass destruction. These aren't the only examples I have though. In the Splatoon manga, there's a legendary splatter shot designed by Moses Schellendorf, which is capable of blasting a hole in the side of a mountain. Although it's from the manga, which I'm a little iffy about the canon status of, it does appear it was designed by one of Splatoon's concept artists, so I thought it was worth mentioning this. 247 siblings. In Haikai Walker, it's mentioned that Ishida, the herring guitarist for Haikai era, is the youngest of 247 siblings. This is at the very bottom of the iceberg because of its implications and the questions it raises. Herrings in real life can lay tens of thousands of eggs, so that shows that the sentient fish creatures in Splatoon have similar reproductive strategies as their counterparts in the ocean. Real-world fish tend to just lay their eggs, abandon the children, and hope those children don't get eaten. But surely, Inkopolis society is a bit more different than that, right? Like, there has to be laws regulating this. Are these two parents watching over all these children? Like, there's no way two parents can watch over all these kids. Like, this would have to be a community effort, so there isn't child neglect going on. Like, are the streets of Inkopolis filled with unsupervised tiny fish children? Is this what Nami was talking about with the food chain situation? Like, were some of these children eaten? Was there many more eggs that didn't make it? Is this partially why land has been fought over so fiercely in Splatoon because of this global population for all the sentient fish being able to lay thousands of eggs? Okay, I'm starting to get into baseless theory territory, but I do have a theory surrounding this and how it would be regulated. Maybe I should make a video about it, but still, what the fuck do you see with missing persons? In Haikai Walker, details are given about a giant rave that was held in the UC. During this event, DJ Sambo and Marina had an 8-hour-long rap battle. Farley Captain Cuttlefish also had a rap battle, and it was filled with unairable, unprintable language. The event was attended by 60 billion? Yes, 60 billion The number used isn't even a real number. When people use this number in Japanese, apparently they usually mean a billion. It's maybe an exaggeration, but 247 siblings is anything to go by. I don't know, it could be literal. Still, it was attended by way too many, and there are still people missing since the event. Wow, thank you if you watched all of this. Some people might disagree with the placement of where some things are on this iceberg, and that's fine because I believe some things could be switched around too. But honestly, I don't really care anymore. I eventually reached a point where I got sick of moving things around and I ran out of room in some tiers, and that's how it is. But yeah, I spent way too much time compiling all this information and editing this, not to mention some of this info and stuff I personally translated from interviews and art books. So if you enjoyed it, I really appreciate if you followed me on Twitter, or liked, or commented, or subscribed, or whatever YouTubers say these days. I do hope to make more Splatoon videos in the future because I enjoy talking to people's ears about how weird this game is. So yeah, I hope you look forward to that. Bye.
0.7 gigabytes?
LB, that means pounds.
That's actually kind of light.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Yeah, that's really light actually.
Yeah, I'm actually just really enjoying the room. Pretty nice, I'm glad I have the hang of it.
Yeah, once you get the hang of it.
Oh yes, grand, yeah. Everybody just takes a couple of minutes to be like, oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of the Splatoon Iceberg. Glad you decided to come back to see how this all concludes. And if you stumbled upon this video without watching the part 1, firstly, welcome. Secondly, I'd recommend watching part 1 of this iceberg, which I'll have linked in the description and here on this card. And quickly, just to address a few things from part 1, yes, I accidentally had Marina show up on screen instead of Marie during the all armor sets are obtainable as gear in Splatoon 2 entry. To make sure we're all in the same boat, Marie's amiibo gives you an armor replica gear set, not Marina's. Marina's amiibo gives you the marinated gear set. Thanks to everyone that pointed out that editing error. I also had someone from Japan point out that they read a non-translated article stating that super jumps were based on a rabbit's jump developed during the rabbit build, and they kept it in the game because the developers liked it. The person said they couldn't find the referenced article though, so if you have any information about that article, please let all of us know in the comment section. It would be great to know more about it. Oh yeah, and someone pointed out that Pearl and Marina look like Biggie and Tupac. I can't unsee it, and it has so many implications for Splatoon 3, but so does Daft Punk. Anyway, with all that out of the way, here it is, layers 4 to 6, and oh boy, we have a lot to cover in this video, so let's get it started.
I really like the video when you chase it. It's just still there.
Yeah, exactly.
Very some candy, sugar, cookies.
All for sales. Is this baby on the... Hey, this is actually painful!
Unlockable Agent 3 cape. Some people thought that you would be able to obtain Agent 3's awesome cape as a piece of gear. If we could have unlocked it anywhere, I have a feeling it would have been from the inner Agent 3 fight. That hellish fight. Instead, we get the golden toothpick. You know what? That's fine. I think that's fine. Agent 3 should be the only one to wear their cape. They're not an Inkopolis idol, and they're part of the new Squidbeak Splatoon, so they'd have to hide their identity. So having Inklings and Octolings run around with their cape would seem a bit off. Also, fun fact, is revealed in the Octo expansion art book that Agent 3 is a DJ under the name DJ Sangor, and they had an 8-hour rap battle with Marina in the deep sea. Captain Cuttlefish and Pearl had one during the same event too. But why does this rap battle matter? Because creatures went missing, and the attendees were either 60 billion homies or 60 million. What? Clan Fiorant on Tumblr translated the text stating this. Oku in Japanese refers to billion, and man refers to million. And the artbook says Okuman, so it could mean a big number? This rave was set up terribly. Firstly, there were so many attendees, that's just uncontrollable, and secondly, does no one care about the missing creatures? How do you let something like this happen? I actually found out some of this information while watching a Splatoon iceberg video by Rassicus. The video covers a different iceberg and is very informative. Check it out if you have the time, link in description. Agent 3 in Splatoon 2 was based on hackers in Splatoon 1. Wow. So as you can see here, Random User 101 can basically use any main weapon, sub-weapon, or special weapon while also having insane movement options and probably a large amount of health. I don't know about the health part though, because the dude never really gets into any danger. This video was posted on December 1st, 2020, but these hacks were available long before that, so it's still relevant. Now let's look at Agent 3. They have multiple special weapons during the fights against Agent 8, plus a large health pool and dodge rolls. So that's why it's thought that Agent 3 is based off of Splatoon 1 hackers. However, we actually have an in-game explanation for Agent 3's large arsenal of weapons. Marina explains that Agent 3 had their limiter removed. This is huge. It suggests that we always use a limiter during multiplayer matches and most likely in the hero modes too. Without this limiter, we would be unstoppable. Embrace the chaos. Salmonid eggs are salmonid orphans. This entry is based on a theory that the golden eggs hatch into salmonids, and powerful salmonids carry around eggs as a way of adopting them and protecting them. These eggs are so important to them that they'll protect them with their lives. When salmon go to lay eggs, they typically do this in high latitude freshwater streams. Golden eggs drop from salmonid bosses, and they seem to have little salmonids inside of them. Why would they take their unborn young into battle? Because of the salmon run. More on that later. But there's also more than meets the eye. In the Schellendorf Institute, we can see Inklings worshipping a golden egg. It seems that there's definitely more to those eggs that we don't know. What power do the salmonids hold? What is in these golden eggs that is so sought after? We can see that power eggs, the ones we find all over the hero modes, the expansion, and the salmon runs, look a lot like caviar. Eggs, but not special eggs? The reason that the salmonids have all this machinery is because they have a trade deal with the Octarians. They give them power eggs in return for machinery. They wouldn't dare trade these golden eggs with anyone. It's all confusing, but hopefully we get the answers about the salmonids in Splatoon 3. What the hell is this? The Book of Medai and the 7 rings in the sky is Judgment Day or the Second Great Turf War, when smoke rises from the 7 rings. The pink fish will emerge from the sea, devouring all creatures of the land. The Book of Medai, Chapter 10, Verse 10. Yeah, okay, cool. So is this Judgment Day or the Second Great Turf War? I have no idea. This Book of Medai chapter is from Splatoon 2's Sunken Scroll 17. What is the Book of Medai? It's probably like a Bible or some prophetic book full of teachings. Medai could be referring to the son of Japheth from the Book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, or it could be referring to the Pagurus Major family the Red Sea breed belonged to, with Pagurus Major translating to Medai in Japanese. Honestly, it could be either one of these given the context of the image. Sunken Scroll 18 explains that salmonids have a mass migration once every 70 years. This has to be that migration, right? Judgment Day perhaps? Why are we in the Splatlands in Splatoon 3? Maybe this mass migration forced us out here. How intense is this salmon run? Is this even a salmon run? Alright, hear me out. 7 rings. Here comes Agent 7. Salmon Whisperer? Question mark? What about a Second Great Turf War? Let's just assume that the salmonids drove everything out of Inkopolis and they took over it. Now, the Inklings get to taste how it feels to be driven away. Time to take Inkopolis back and maybe even fight with or against Grizzco. Was he onto something? Was he taking these eggs for a reason? Who knows? Even though the Octarians have been subject to this isolation by the Inklings being driven away from the land, they sympathize with them. DJ Octavia and Captain Cuttlefish rekindle their relationship, and then we get a giant Avenger-style battle like... That's just my speculation though. I'm sure we'll have all the answers for this in Splatoon 3. Mr. Grizz Theories. Who is this mysterious figure? We've been doing salmon runs under their guidance for years now, and we don't even know why. So here's some theory talk. Regarding who Mr. Grizz is, he uses a Kibori Kuma statue to represent himself. Could Grizz actually be a bear? A salmon run is a real-world event where salmon that have migrated from the ocean swim up rivers so they can lay their spawn in gravel beds. Guess who's there to meet them at the rivers? Hungry grizzly bears. At first, I thought that Grizz actually being a bear would be a cop-out, but the salmon run symbolism is there, and it's not entirely out of the picture. Let's take a look at Judd. We love him. Oh yeah, and he's also immortal. It was revealed in the Art of Splatoon 2 book that the professor injected Judd with an immortality drug before he was put into cryostasis. Oh, and I almost forgot. Silly me. Judd uses thought waves to transmit the lobby's rules into the minds of Inklings and Octolings and to talk to them in general. Wow, thank you, the Art of Splatoon 2. Now hold on, rewind back to that immortality jazz. What are the chances that the professor or someone similar to the professor gave a grizzly bear the immortality serum and some sort of speaking ability? On the ruins of Arc Polaris Salmon Run stage, we can find signs in English saying to be cautious of the active bear area. This is the only instance of a human language in the game. During the low tide on the stage, we can see what might be bear tracks in the ground, although these look more like craters made by the Arc Polaris wreckage or something like that. Oh boy, so what's Grizz's objective? He wants us to collect golden eggs, so if he has or had a master, is there a certain objective his master wanted him to achieve? That sounds just like Tata. You know, Grizz asks us if we want to join something bigger than ourselves. Tata says something similar. Is there a connection here? This similar dialogue isn't present in the Japanese version of the game though. Now, Famitsu interviewed some Splatoon developers and they stated that Mr. Grizz might not even be observing everything going on in his workplace. He could be using an automatic speech system, so he could be an AI, or just the face of the company. But what if he was an Inkling? Bamboo Hat from the Splatoon manga can be seen carving a Grizzco statue when Ryder asks her to join the yellow team again. Apparently, carving is her hobby, so she could just be carving the statue because she thought it looked cool and as a little Easter egg. Or she could be the mastermind behind Grizzco Industries. When we go to collect our bonuses after playing Salmon Run, I think the laugh that's heard here sounds feminine. Bamboo Hat. Whether the manga is canon or not is debatable, so who knows? Save our salmons. Scrap Splatoon 1 outfit, ruins of Arc Polaris. So a lot of gear was scrapped for Splatoon 1. The most famous gear out of all of them was this warrior headdress. It's assumed that its connection to Native American culture was the reason for its removal from the game. There was also a bunch of other gear that was removed and changed up for both games. You can find them on the cutting room floor, link in description. I really want to point this out, so just as a special mention, this demon spawn, the Nil statue mask from Splatoon 2. This thing was implied to be an unlockable reward from the Octo expansion. I can't believe we didn't get to unlock this as a piece of gear. I love it. It really fits in with all the other disturbing stuff in the game. It's a little unnerving too, so I think that might be part of the reason of why it's not in the game. Now, the ruins of Arc Polaris. We can assume that this is the Arc Polaris, a space shuttle. The tech's private property can be seen on the shuttle as well as ICA, probably the Splatoon version of the CIA. Polaris is the North Star / Pole Star and is the brightest star of the Ursa Minor constellation. Ursa is Latin for bear. Ursa Minor? Ursa Major? Both constellations are near each other. Now we know that a nuke went off in the South Pole during the human era that set the course for human extinction. This happened during humanity's 5th World War. What was worth fighting over that badly? Probably land because of all the rising sea levels. So then, what was this shuttle used for? To leave Earth? Think about it. A select few humans go into space, they come back to Earth when they think everything is calmed down, but uh-oh, it hasn't, and they land in the water and die. Or maybe the shuttle never left Earth. Now, JG Ultra told me that the concept art for Splatoon 2 implied astronauts could have had a bigger role in Splatoon 2. Check this bad boy out. Octarians in spacesuits, some rocket ships, and then BAM! This massive spacesuit clearly made for a big Octo. Or the Nil statue, maybe. Could these small suits have been scrapped gear? Anyway, Octarians seem to be living in hardship. All of them are underground in crumbling homes and they can't get their hands on surface land. At one point, maybe they were inspired by the Arc Polaris and they tried to go to the moon. I love space, so I think these concepts would have been great. Squeaky is a Splatoon dev and Project Splatoon 3 is real. Squeaky, the absolute legend, is behind this amazing 41-page fan-made concept design for Splatoon 3 called Project Splatoon 3. I am amazed at what's in this document. It's beautiful. New weapons, idols, locations, brands, customization, story, and lore. It's all here in this neat beach pirate bundle. So that begs the question, is Squeaky a Splatoon dev and is Project Splatoon 3 real? Unfortunately, no. Squeaky's ArtStation account says she's a concept artist at 11th Hour Games, so not Nintendo. Plus we kinda had the Splatoon 3 reveal anyway and it's completely different to Project Splatoon 3. Things could change though, I mean they could do a water reveal in the next Splatoon 3 trailer or something like that. But anyway, if this was Splatoon 3, I would have been a very happy boy, so I highly recommend taking a look at Project Splatoon 3 for yourself. The amount of love and care that's been put into this is glorious. 1000% Octo Expansion Reward, Unfinished Concept Weapons. The 1000 part is just a silly little false rumor, a curveball to throw us off balance, but could you imagine a 1000% clear reward for the expansion? Every level with every weapon, every power egg, and every power up collected. Oh, and plus a Secret Agent 3 fight, all for some reward. The mask! The glorious mask! Now, what about the unfinished concept weapons? From the Art of Splatoon we have a hairdryer. This could have been a cool weapon type, maybe it damaged enemies by drying them out. Now here in the pre-made guide we have even more weapons. Some bubblegum machine weapon, some missile launcher, a fancy paintbrush, pizza cutter, small killer whale, a fancy flintlock. These could have been some pretty awesome weapons. It's a shame they aren't in either games. The Eye of Justice. This is a piece of headgear from Splatoon 2 given to us because of the Chaos vs. Order Splatfest, specifically from Team Order. The visor in the middle of the helmet shows Marina's Splatfest logo, and occasionally, text will appear on the helmet's visor. It's from the Team Order logo. I know why this is of interest. It's the eye, an all-seeing eye. An easy way to achieve order is by monitoring those who you want to control. In the Deep Sea Metro, a similar-looking eye can be found everywhere, and I mean everywhere. The Deep Sea Metro was constantly under the surveillance of Kamabo Corporation and the head of it, Tata, especially since it wanted to control everyone and kill everything and sided with Team Order, or at least would have if it wasn't destroyed. Whether you think you're safe, or whether you think you're alone, someone or something is always watching. The eye is a symbol of that, an omnipresent force that cannot be shaken. There's definitely something going on here, but I can't piece it all together and it's driving me crazy. The eyes, Marina, idols, Octarians, Octolings, Inklings, Control, Order, the Deep Sea Metro, Grizzco, Humans, Extinction. Laughing Statue and Inkblot Splatfest Octoling Calls. Splatoon 1, Museum de Alfonsino. During the Splatfest version of the stage, children's laughter can be heard coming from the two Inkling statues found in the stage. One statue is in the thinker pose and the other is just standing. Take a listen.
Sorry! Ow!
This is like the sounds in the boss rooms all over again, and a few of you have actually pointed out that the sounds could be Octarian society crumbling beneath us, and I gotta say, that sounds very plausible. Getting back on topic, what's going on here? The statues laugh a little bit during the start of the turf war, and then they pick up again during the last 40 seconds, and getting too close to them seems to spook them a bit, and they won't laugh. Standing on this platform seems to be the best way to hear them, and nobody knows why this happens or what the significance of the laughter is. But we have a source for the laughter. Skyward Sword, Goloktos. After beating it, it'll flail around and make some very familiar noises. Asset sharing? Nintendo Shared Universe, anyone? No? By the way, Horse Feathers on YouTube has a great video covering this topic. Link in description if you want to watch it. Now, moving to the Splatoon 2 Inkblot Art Academy stage during a Splatfest. The green phones can sometimes be heard ringing, followed by what is assumed to be an Octoling or Octoling speaking. It's hard to tell if they are Octolings, so they could also be Inklings. But now we have the same question we asked regarding the children's laughter. Why? Is it a secret conversation we can eavesdrop on? Does it have any sort of significance at all? From what I can hear and see, there's two routes we can take. The first one is that the statues and phone booths have some sort of dark undertones and secrets to them. The second one is that a developer or developers are intentionally putting spooky audio into the games to mess with players, and I've gotta say, I'd believe this one. But if there is actually more to these audio files, then sanitized Octoling concept art and assembly line. We have this concept art image here, and as we can see, Octolings and Octodudes are seen working on this assembly line, supposedly sanitizing creatures. Newly sanitized creatures seem to be encased in plastic, and honestly, this place looks a lot like the factory I used to work at. So basically, we're dealing with a pretty standard zombification assembly line. Plus, there's this. It seems like this could be a way to sanitize creatures. These images give us some insight into what the sanitization process could look like behind doors. Also, there's this image that looks like it could be in the sanitization area too. Scrap Tartar Train Chase. Shoutouts to Rasicus for sending me this image because I couldn't find it anywhere. There's a sanitized Octoling just chilling here and what seems to be a timer and Agent 8 running on top of the deep sea metro train. No sign of Tartar though. Could it be at the front of the train and Agent 8 has to fight their way to it? Who knows? Seeing this image makes me wish there was a sequence like this in the game. It would have spiced up the expansion a bit. Splatoon Rule 34. I've covered Fall Guys Rule 34, Fairy Tits, and the infamous Zora Tits. But this is different. When you play as an Inkling, remember, you're a kid now, you're a squid now. The same goes for Octolings, but octopus. As of Splatoon 2, Marina, Callie, and Marie are all supposedly 19, Pearl is 21, and Captain Cuttlefish is very old. So get jiggy for them all you want. Or don't. To put it lightly, we have a moral dilemma regarding drawings of underage characters. Things get really complicated regarding this underage content, especially when it comes to legalities as we've seen in Australia. To keep it brief, owning or buying a physical copy of any sort of hentai is illegal in Australia as of 2020 as an attempt to primarily combat hentai with children in it. So even physical content that was once deemed illegal isn't anymore. Now, I've seen the argument that these are just drawings and nobody, hopefully, was hurt in the making of them. But it's so much more complicated than that. You will hurt yourself by viewing this stuff. It will warp your mind, reprogram your libido to enjoy these things, and you will believe that this stuff is normal and fine as you lay in bed thinking, they're not real children, it's fine. Please don't do that to yourself. Whether you know it or not, this will be severely affecting you. With just one Google search, I was able to research all of this stuff, and I would highly recommend doing so if you're interested in what this all does to you, or if you're struggling to step away from this stuff. If you need to, talk to someone you trust dearly about it too. I'm sure they won't judge you, and they'll be there to help. For those who are struggling, you'll always have a chance to get out. Things will only get better from there. Now that finishes up layer 4. It got real dark, real quick, but we have to keep going.
Yes.
Say you can find a hole.
Splatoon 1 Playboy promo. Before Splatoon 1 was released, Playboy released a video of Pamela Horton and Amelia Talon, who were at the time Playboy's Gamers Next Door, playing and discussing Splatoon 1. On this YouTube channel they played, discussed, and reviewed games as well as made other game-related videos. They were invited to go to Nintendo, presumably the American HQ, to play the game. It's a very ooh-woo review and it's pretty informative. Like, they nailed down most things about Splatoon. And no, they didn't dress up and do photo shoots for the game like it's been rumored. Oh, and this part right here, this keeps me up at night.
As a first-person shooter, it didn't feel like a first-person shooter like Call of Duty. As a first-person shooter.
I would actually recommend watching this video, link in description, because this is the adult company Playboy making a review for an E for Everyone rated game. Their Gamer Next Door series is not very adult for the most part too, especially this video, and they were clearly recognized in the industry and by commenters. And hey, would you look at that, they even attended the Mess Fest. However, this channel has stopped uploading years ago, and hey, even Ian from Smosh appeared in a video. Prototype builds are personalized to each developer. This is basically like the whole every copy of Mario 64 is personalized shtick, except it's centered around the developers of Splatoon. So if this would be the case, then what kind of developer personalized prototype or prototypes got turned into the final game, and which one did you get? Puts12 harassing a child at Smash and Splash. He is a YouTuber that primarily uploads Splatoon content. Well, actually, streams Splatoon content. Not on Twitch though, because he got banned. And you'll soon see why. What has given this creator notoriety is how angry he gets when he plays games. You can find a lot of Puts12 rage compilations made by people, and they're loud.
God, I hate these fuckers! I seriously cannot stand this matchmaking shit! I cannot stand this fucking community who fucking wants to play defense on a fucking offensive goddamn motherfucking round!
I don't know Puts, I've never watched his content before researching him either, but there's no way this is done just to humor people. He just comes off as an angry person that immaturely screams his frustrations out and people laugh sometimes. See, during 2019 Smash and Splash, which is a Super Smash Bros. And Splatoon event, he entered a Splatoon 2 tournament and a little girl joined the team he was on as a substitute. They didn't win, and Puts, furious about losing in the colorful Nintendo game, yelled at the little girl for being dead weight while also thrashing around like a spoiled man-child, almost damaging tournament equipment. The poor little girl began to cry soon after, and her dad was rightfully concerned. Puts was allegedly kicked from the event too. That's just awful. The audacity this guy has to put someone much younger than him down without thinking about his actions and their consequences is upsetting. Good news though, word around the block is that the girl was okay after the incident, which is great to know. And that brings us to Puts12 in general. As seen by the screaming at the little girl incident, nothing seems to be ever his fault in Splatoon. It's always his team's fault if something goes wrong or if they lose.
All three of them are gone! Who is it? Slug, Joel, and Taylor. All you guys are fucking out of here! You steal my Rainmaker, you don't dunk it, and you still fucking win! Ooh.
And that sucks because surprisingly, he's actually really good at the game, and when he isn't screaming or getting angry at his teammates, his gameplay can shine. I say can because after watching him play a lot of Splatoon, it's clear to see that he can get into the trap of playing aggressively and getting extreme tunnel vision. I've never seen someone attempt a Rainmaker solo carry so many times and not realize that they shouldn't push hard without their teammates. How do you get into X rank playing like this? How do you even play a team-based game like this? Why would you block people you lose to? How can you be so terrible over a game like Splatoon? It's hard to believe that someone can be like this. This blatant disrespect for people and all of this man-child rage is awful. Whether it's done for a joke, in complete seriousness, or a bit of both is not great. Some other things he is known for is for being on Man vs. Food, the one with Casey Webb, not the one with the legendary Adam Richman. He also called Nintendo HQ to complain about wanting a bigger block limit, which I assume refers to Smash Bros. I don't know much about Puts' past at all, but I think it could hold the answers as to why he acts the way he does. You know, he kind of reminds me a bit of low-tier God, just on a smaller notoriety scale. I'm not using Puts' past as an excuse for his actions, but it would give us some insight into everything he does. Also, I'm saying this just in case, but don't go harassing this guy for any reason and in any way, please. Camabro Corp is a lure for Octolings to create super soldiers and recreate society. Now, this is an interesting theory. If Camabro Corp was a lure, how would they do it? Well, with freedom. When Octolings hear Calamari incantation, they become discontent with Octarian society. We know that. While traveling the lands away from the Octarians, some will eventually encounter Tata and or the Deep Sea Metro. A promise of a new Octarian society would be made to the Octolings, and they would train in the Deep Sea Metro to gauge their skills, completing tests and collecting things. Little would they know that once they enter the Deep Sea Metro, their fates lie within the primordial ooze or under Tata as a mindless zombie. Being sanitized would turn Octolings into super soldiers and would assist in the creation of even more super soldiers, possibly even the ultimate life form, the ultimate super soldier. Any Octoling blended would be used to make the ultimate life form and also recreate society. Once all of that's been accomplished, society would be controlled by Tata and its Camabro Corp. Sanitized Octolings, along with any other sanitized creatures, would slave away for Tata as the ultimate life form reigns too. Although some points I presented go against actual facts, mainly the whole lure for Octolings bit. Even so, it's still fun to discuss the what-ifs. The Nil statue was going to be an undead human Cyclops. Not exactly an undead human Cyclops, but judging by this concept art, the statue could have anatomy similar to a human's. We do see that it has some sort of simulated human anatomy, but this would have gone beyond that. It looks really unsettling, like why would this giant statue even need anatomy? If there was effort put into designing the insides like this, then I'm sure it could have been used for something that was scrapped. And look at its face, it really does look undead. The sanitization, the gloomy face, I wouldn't be surprised if it was planned to move around at some point as well. Final boss concept art. When researching, it seems as though Tata is the one this entry refers to. So here we go. You know, it starts off pretty tame, and I like its little legs here. It reminds me a lot of Majora's Incarnation, and then things start to get weird from here. Very weird, until... yeah, that. The fake teeth, the eyeballs, the sausages and the mincer. This would have made for a twisted final boss fight. Imagine if we got this as the expansion final boss. Don't get me wrong, this blender, the screams and the music accompanying it is also very unnerving, but this would have caused nightmares. We have these two images too. They remind me of the Octobot King machine that Octavio pilots in each boss fight, but a sanitized version, or some sort of imitation, especially this one. And these two images here sort of show Tata being revealed as the antagonist before webbing out with his ooze to attack Agent 8. Tata can be found in Marie's outpost shack. This looks a lot like Tata. It could just be an Easter egg, something we could see but not understand until the expansion came out. Just like how Halo 3 ODST had a Destiny Easter egg in it before the public knew about Destiny. If we are to believe that this is Tata, then how did we get here? Well, we know that the Octo expansion happened sometime during the events of Splatoon 2's Hero Mode. In case you need a refresher, Marie seeked out a new agent to help find Callie because Agent 3 and Captain Cuttlefish were missing. That's because they were in the Deep Sea Metro with Agent 8. Now, Marie's outpost shack is actually called the Cuttlefish Cabin, meaning that it might belong to Captain Cuttlefish. It's not too crazy to believe that the captain of the new Squid Big Splatoon took Tata's body and kept it in his cabin after Pearl destroyed it as a means of keeping it away from everyone, to analyze it, or to keep it as a trophy. However, I'm pretty sure that it's always been in the cabin, even before Tata was defeated. That would mean there's more of a chance of it being an Easter egg, but who knows, it could actually just be Tata. Tata is a reincarnation of Hitler. So we all know that this person, their political party, and their army committed horrible acts against humanity during World War II. These actions were sparked by one of Hitler's biggest beliefs, racial purity, the Aryan master race, blonde hair, blue eyes, and height. Those who were seen as inferior were sterilized and or killed. Tata had a belief, a vision of its ultimate life form. We never got to see it because Tata was defeated, but we can assume that the ultimate life form would have been the Splatoon universe's master race. Tata blended up test subjects that could pass its tests, no matter what species they were. They contained what it believed to have superior DNA to be used in the primordial ooze to create the ultimate life form, a pure ultimate life form in its eyes. Other creatures that weren't killed for the ooze were sanitized, marked and enslaved by Camabro Corp to work under them for as long as they're needed. Everyone was to be killed or enslaved for the prosperity of the ultimate life form. There's a lot of similarities here to Hitler and his party, but is Tata really a reincarnation? We know that it went crazy after being alone, waiting for intelligent life for thousands of years. All of that loneliness being stuck in its mind corrupted it and turned it into a monster hidden behind a charismatic and well-presented facade. Even though that's the case, there's no reincarnation connection to Hitler because that wouldn't fly in a PG/E10+ rated game. I understand the irony in saying that, knowing how deep the Splatoon lore goes. However, the similarities between some of Tata's and Hitler's ideologies and actions are uncanny. Marina's backstory logs. So in the part 1 video, I pointed out that Marina worked under the Octarians, and now here are the full details. In Splatoon 2's Octo expansion, after completing certain levels, you'll unlock chat logs between Captain Cuttlefish, Pearl, and Marina from Marina's chat room. There are 10 normal ones and 1 bonus one with Marie in it. These logs contain a good mix of goofs and backstory shared by the chat room participants. Speaking of goofs, just quickly, Pearl shared 2 images of Marina in session 4. One where she's chilling with Judd on the first day she met Pearl, and then this one. Okay, so drinks, drooling, drowsiness, some Pearl looking thing underneath Marina. Do I have to spell it out? Wait.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Anyway, back on topic, in session 6, it happens. Pearl tells Captain Cuttlefish that Marina's kind of a weirdo. She's like freakishly tall and way too smart for her own good. And she points out that Marina made an entire battle stage by herself with floating rocks and everything, referring to the Splatfest stages. Captain Cuttlefish points out that making objects float is Octotech. After some more of Pearl's questions, Captain Cuttlefish also reveals this classified image. Gen 83, Octolink Combat Engineer, Marina Ida. And there it is, the reason for her leaving the Octarians. Went AWOL after coming within audible range of the Calamari incantation sung by the new Squid Big Splatoon. According to witness interviews, she said, "This changes everything," before vanishing. She's right, this does change everything. Marina's true IQ and her death count. Age 6, enrolled in the elementary training program at Slimeskin Garrison. This place is the 4th area of Octo Canyon, and it definitely looks like some sort of training area, although it seems abandoned now. Age 9, skipped multiple grades, took only advanced courses, graduated. The program that Marina went through is being called an elementary training one, so I'm going to compare it to an elementary school. Kids on average are age 6 to 13 when going through the elementary level. Marina graduated at 9. Age 10, member of Flutter design team, fully automated cleaning weapon. Flutters, those machines that clean and kill. Captain Cuttlefish states that Agent 3 has been a victim of these too many times. Age 13, joined Slimeskin Garrison, specialized in improving great octo weapons. Joining a military group at that age as an engineer to improve powerful weapons is unbelievable. And she was improving those machines that were deployed in the Great Turf War and the same ones we fight mainly in Splatoon 1. She was our unseen enemy. Age 16, assigned to DJ Octavio's Wasabi supply unit, earned multiple commendations. She was clearly at the top of her game before disappearing that same year. Her intelligence hasn't wavered either. If anything, her IQ has probably risen as she's gotten older. She's 18 during the events of Splatoon 2. Now, what would her IQ be? Considering that she started training at 6, finished at 9 by skipping grades and doing advanced courses, helped design military-grade machinery at 10, joined a garrison at 13 to improve some of the most powerful Octarian military weapons, joined DJ Octavio's Wasabi supply unit, assumably a high-ranking position, can make Splatfest stages all by herself, can make new weapons from scratch, can make music, and probably has incredible combat skills. I'm guessing her IQ is somewhere between 400 and 500. And yes, I understand that to determine IQ, you have to take standardized tests, but knowing what Marina can do, I think she'd score high on these tests. Now, what about her death count? Considering that she has helped improve flutters and great octo weapons, plus she's most likely skilled in combat, it's really hard to tell. It was only the new Squid Big Splatoon that fought DJ Octavio in Splatoon 1 and 2, and 10,008 test subjects in the Metro fought against flutters and great octo weapons. She was also an engineer, so I don't think she ever fought, so the machines she helped to create would contribute to the death count, right? That's the only way I see her having a death count, so what would it be? Well, if you counted death as someone being splattered and then respawning, then it's probably thousands. If not, then probably around a few hundred or so. Well then that begs the question, who were the victims? Agents 3, 4, 8, the thousands of test subjects in the deep sea metro, and maybe some other random inklings. Pearl and Marina are self-aware gods. This is an insane theory. What would make these two gods? Starting with Pearl, her voice. Splatoon 2's Sunken Scroll 1 shows Pearl damaging the youth folk singing venue after creating a shockwave with her voice. During the Octo expansion finale, she weaponizes her vocal power through the use of her killer whale, the Princess Cannon. Her booyah was so powerful that it thwarted the years of planning and efforts by Tata. Oh, and the Nil statue, known as the National Institute for Longevity Sciences by those in the know, you know? It looks like Hermes, God vs. God. Now, we know that Marina is crazy smart and has built and improved a variety of things while working under the Octarian army and in Inkopolis. Vocal powers and intelligence. To think of them as gods may just be a theory, but it gets a little too real. For some real-world references, Pearl reminds me of some Halamonkey Mayan god, or the Greek god Apollo, or Dionysus. Marina though, 100% the Greek goddess Athena. But looking at them in a Splatoon universe level, their magnificence gives them a godly status, the idol status. Think about it, they're loved in Inkopolis. In the square, they have their own studio near the people. It's like a worship spot. And then when they perform during Splatfest, it's like they're addressing the people they rule over with song. They also address the people when they announce the current playable stages. Back onto Splatfest, they announce the teams presumably still chosen by the all-knowing fax machine, and Marina creates the stages. Gods have been known to create many things, and each team is chosen by an idol, and Inklings and Octolings choose which team they want to represent and battle for. Pearl and Marina watch, sing, and dance as their teams battle for them to push to see which thing is better. However, they did play a bigger role in the final Splatfest Shifty Station stage, MC Princess Diaries. At 1 minute remaining, Pearl descends from the heavens to grace the first person who gets to her with the Princess Cannon. She'll use it for you after you aim it, giving you a taste of her godly powers. Marina, on the other hand, sends her hyper bombs onto the stage when there is 2 minutes 45 seconds, 1 minute 30 seconds, and 15 seconds remaining. And that's her way of giving the player a taste of her godly powers. This all plays out while the corpse of the god they took down sits in the ocean. You also get ranks in each team, and the highest rank is king or queen. So close to their status, but so far. You'll never be on their power level, and they know it because you'll always be under them. These ranks, along with Splatfest power and clout, are Pearl and Marina's acknowledgement of your power and dedication to them as gods. To top it off, their self-awareness goes beyond the fourth wall. It's like they know they're in a video game, although Marina is the one having a breakdown about it, but it seems like she's the only one that gets a chance to do so. That's how they're programmed. Their simulation is hell. Pair all of this with their powers, and they're symbolically self-aware gods, if not actual gods in the Splatoon universe.
No, look who showed up.
Any fan of the Squid Sisters is a friend of mine. Approved in 1953, it was a codename given to the experiments that were conducted on people by the CIA. This was done to develop drugs and procedures that would have been used to force knowledge out of people through brainwashing and psychological torture. A lot of illegal activities happened during these experiments, and a lot of it was covered up by those working on it. It was a psyop. Psychoactive drugs, chemicals, electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse were just some of the techniques used. How does this relate to the heavenly melody that has etched itself into the souls of Inklings and Octolings? Music, or more specifically, sounds as a form of hypnosis for brainwashing. Isn't it a bit weird that the song can make Octolings discontent with Octarian society almost instantly? How do you go from being indoctrinated into believing that Inklings are the enemy to living with those who've considered your enemy for so long like nothing ever happened? That in itself is brainwashing, right? The sounds used in the song have some sort of effect on not just Octolings but Inklings too. And if the Octolings couldn't find Inkopolis, well, the Deep Sea Metro was where they could find themselves. Katamari Incantation being based on the CIA's Project MK Ultra seems like a bit of a stretch, but there are some strange similarities. Splatoon is real and it's only a matter of time. Climate change, world wars, the nuke detonation in Antarctica, the flooding of the Earth, the extinction of humanity. This entry implies that our species will eventually be killed off by these actions that we'll make in the future. And I gotta say, it really does sound like something that could happen. And what's next in line to evolve once humans and other land creatures die out due to flooding? Marine life, specifically cephalopods. They're smart and they have cognitive skills. Plus, they have access to RNA editing. To heavily simplify it, their bodies adapt to their environments. And that is why Splatoon is a PSA. I think that Splatoon has a hidden message to it, telling us that humanity is going to be its own downfall, and the actions of humans in the Splatoon universe and the actions of Inklings and Octolings demonstrate that to us. So just for a quick refresher, humanity wiped itself out, marine life evolved to live on land, and now they're repeating some of humanity's mistakes. Now for real life, governments. They have the power to unify countries or divide the world on a large scale. With countries butting heads, military powers increasing, and with sea levels rising due to global warming, does another world war seem impossible? And what's going to be the breaking point where one side takes it too far and it's over for all of us? In a way, it kind of reminds me a bit of the conflict between the Inklings and the Octarians. We even have issues at smaller scales, division and hostility against people. I've seen my fair share of people divided over the smallest things. Oh, and the mass media, always working the amygdala into overtime, making people stressed and irrational. It all creates this weird radicalization and lack of care. It's terrible. To a certain extent, it's like a splatfest, one side against the other as they fight for a trivial topic they believe in. But you know what? Let's look at the good of Splatoon. When characters come together and learn more about the world around them, they come to a better understanding of it and realize how misinformed they were, and this makes them treat each other better. It's like the games are telling us to put minor differences aside and come together as one people to live and prosper together, unless we want to end up extinct.
That's so spicy, I think. Was it the spicy?
I liked it!
Did it make your belly go?
Yeah, it did make my belly go and touch the dog and it made
Okay. You.
Most of the fun has come to an end. I will be talking about these two YouTubers, Heavy the Squid and Omega the Squid Man, and their terrible actions. After that, I'll be discussing Ellie Godelia, a victim of Heavy the Squid, and then I'll be moving on to the Loot House. I chose to add these two in because Ellie has done some messed up stuff too. Now, the Loot House, thanks to the commenter that brought it to my attention, because after researching into it, I knew I had to talk about it. A lot of what I'm going to talk about revolves around the themes of harassment, abuses of power, sexual misconduct, self-harm, just a lot of slimy, skin-crawling stuff involving adults and children. Do not go out of your way to harass these people. It's best you stay very far away from them. You'll see why. Heavy the Squid, also formerly known as Inspector Heavy and known as Philip Heisenbauer, he was a content creator on YouTube that started making content back in 2013. He is best known for his Splatoon-related animations made in Gary's mod. He made a character in these animations called Heavy the Squid, and he wielded a heavy splatling before switching to the splat dualies. Before making these animations, he was part of the Team Fortress 2 community and was apparently shunned away for being too odd for them. He eventually deleted all of his TF2 videos, and his channel started gaining popularity because of his switch to Splatoon Gmod videos. He soon found himself with a young fanbase who would regularly watch his videos, and that's where the problems arose. Heavy at the time was 24, and he decided to date a fan and Splatoon Gmod creator named Ellie Godelia. She was 15 to 16 at the time. She thought Heavy was nice at first, but as time went on, she realized that she needed to get out. Heavy would get her to do roleplay with him, and the messages he sent to her were just creepy. Heavy also sent a full body photo of himself with just his underwear on when they were together. I've censored it because it's just not very flattering at all. When Ellie cut ties with him, he went into an all-out defense mode and sent his fans her way to harass her and badmouth her around the internet. He also went into damage control mode because of a video by Pixurprise, who is best known as the British Meme Man. So if you want more info on the topic, I'll have his video linked in the description. Anyway, this stuff was all happening during late 2017 to early 2018. How can a fully grown adult go this power crazy on an underage fan? It's disgusting on so many levels. Another person targeted by Heavy was a YouTuber called Granola Bar. I asked him about it and basically, he uploaded a Splatoon cringe compilation and one of Heavy's videos made it into it. Heavy proceeded to harass Granola Bar, notably calling him an Overwatch, stating he hates gays and lesbians. He also striked one of his videos and then threatened to strike more. This almost terminated Granola Bar's channel. It all came crashing down for Heavy. He went on a very long hiatus of 1 day. News of his garbage behavior was further spread by other channels such as Medi Excalibur 2012, and he made a half-assed apology. He deleted his YouTube channel and social medias after realizing his reputation couldn't be salvaged. He tried to come back to YouTube under the channel name Sergeant Putis, but Medi Excalibur figured out that Putis was Heavy and he made a video exposing the truth. That channel was deleted soon after, as well as the Pixurprise video I suggested. If you want even more info on all of this stuff, I've also linked a page written up by Hedgehog of Culture on Amino in the description.
They're rag jams.
Omega the Squid Man. Formerly known as Omega Mario 89 and now more known as Retro to Modern, he is best known for being a Splatoon Garry's Mod creator just like Heavy. He was actually good friends with Heavy until their friendship fell apart. Before it did, he stood at Heavy's side defending him from pedophile allegations until he broke the friendship off. He explained why, giving 4 main points. Point 1. He was a fool for supporting him in the past. Point 2. He didn't agree with Heavy dating a minor, Ellie. Point 3. He doesn't think Heavy should have sent Ellie a photo of himself in only his underwear. And point 4. Heavy couldn't take being exposed. Heavy also apparently backstabbed some of Omega's friends, which was more of a reason for him to break off the friendship too. Omega sounds like he has his morals in check, right? No. You see, Omega targeted someone called Splat God and messaged him some awful stuff. Other than calling him a pussy and attempting to be threatening, he told him to end his pathetic, miserable little life, or we'll end it for you. That threat was all bark, no bite. Omega, just like Heavy, really likes using slurs. Instead of calling him Splat God, he called him Splat. Granola Bar fell victim to Omega when Omega was trying to defend Heavy. Again, the word is dropped a lot, and he called him pathetic. These are just such childish insults. It's like Omega never left the mindset of a naive school kid. I think the dumbest insult I've seen him throw out is this in reference to Pixurprise. Dick surprise. That's just bad. Back onto the topic of defending Heavy, after Ellie spoke up about him, he sent a photo of someone who he claimed to be Ellie into his Discord server as revenge. Ellie's identity hadn't been revealed by herself yet, and Omega thought he would be the one to do it. And just like with Heavy, Pixurprise does have a video covering Omega, so if you want to see some more info on the topic, link in description. This all brings us to Ellie Gadelia. Her actions during all of this stuff came under fire too, and has also made people skeptical on what she said about Heavy. During 2018, she allegedly had around 12 to 15 boyfriends during this time because of the attention she was getting. I've seen a lot of negativity around this because Ellie said that Heavy's abusive relationship traumatized her, so why would she get into a polyamorous relationship with so many people? I feel like it could have been a reaction from dating Heavy seeing as it traumatized her, or it might have been a cry out for attention, or both. Either way, she made an apology video defending herself, and well, she starts the stream like any good YouTuber and starts it off with a sigh before stating that she had been struggling with anxiety, depression, and trust issues. I don't doubt that she was struggling through everything she said. However, stuff like this can be done to gain sympathy from the audience as a way to excuse behavior, and as we'll soon see, she doesn't come off very genuinely. Throughout the stream, she sighs a lot, doesn't really collect her thoughts properly, and she went off topic a little bit. She would have had to have been nervous during the stream, right? Of course, that makes sense, but it's hard not to feel like she was being disingenuous too, like she didn't care either. One major point to support this was that she also wanted to address her suicide attempt, and during that live stream, she was asking for a certain amount of likes to be hit for her to explain it.
Now, a lot of you I know are probably suspicious about this, you know, thing, but you know what? If I get 3 more likes, I'll explain. I'm not doing this for likes. I'm just saying, I'm pretty much asking to see how much of you are willing to be interested for me to just explain my side. I mean, I'm not asking to be, you know, for attention.
Her excuse? She wanted to see how many people would be interested to hear her explain it. She could have just asked people to comment in the stream saying, yes, I want to hear you explain it instead. But more likes on the stream would make Ellie's apology look better. Plus, she had asked for likes at other times during the stream too. Now, about her suicide attempt. She said her cat saved her while on a call with some other people, and they seemed genuinely shocked and confused about it. She pretended to fade in and out of consciousness, and when people asked for a photo of the rope marks around her neck, she said her phone was full and then that she didn't want to do it. Myself and many others think that she faked this suicide attempt. Suicide is a very serious issue, and the fact that she most likely faked one, assumably for attention and sympathy, is awful of her. Why am I so adamant that she faked it? Because her explanation doesn't make any sense. Basically, she used a soft bathrobe belt and tied it to her bed frame, and then tied the other end around her neck while she sat on the floor, and then leaned forward to strangle herself. During the attempt, she can be heard breathing in and speaking, so she might not have even been doing what she said she was doing. Also, the whole her cat saving her biz. What, it just untied the belt? Seems like a terrible lie. Epically Epic on YouTube has a pretty good video explaining this as well if you want to see some more info, link in description. I have a feeling that sadly, Heavy may have warped Ellie's mind in some way. Being in a relationship with someone like him would have been damaging, and there's most likely a lot more to her attention-seeking behavior too. She was just a kid at the time, she didn't know any better, and she was taken advantage of. I fail to see any other reason as to why a 15 to 16-year-old girl would go ahead and date a 24-year-old YouTuber who presents himself like this. As it's been made clear, Heavy and Omega used their positions of power to attack and abuse fans and critics, and unfortunately, Ellie, a victim of Heavy, used her victim status for attention, leading people to question her truths. All of their actions are somewhat intertwined by some twisted cause and effects. And now, this was a scandal that occurred in Splatoon Splat Source community, as well as the Splatoon Gmod community and Splatoon DeviantArt communities, which started on the 27th of October. The Loot House was a Discord server where several creators from the previously mentioned communities had been engaging in sexual roleplays and other activities. It doesn't sound like anything too crazy until it was found out that a lot of people involved were minors who begged to be a part of it. The adults in the situation allowed them in on it. This bombshell brought into question the ethics of the creators at the top of these communities. Not wanting to be associated with these loot house pedophiles, a lot of people left these communities because of everything that was revealed. Names of bigger players suspected of involvement or actual involvement are To Canadian Spartan, Ellie Gadelia, G of Craze 634, Lizzie Ratsicle, Ghost of Time 1, Cute Yoshi Lover, and Tetra Caden. Some of these people weren't informed of some of the participants' ages, while others knew. There was a Dropbox folder with information on everything that happened called Loot House Heist SFW, but it was taken down. People have been led to believe that TCS bribed the creators of the Dropbox files with 20,000 Canadian dollars to delete it. TCS refers to Tech Canadian Spartan, by the way. So, what became of the Loot House's residents and the Loot House itself? Let's start with one of the worst offenders, TCS. His sexual actions towards someone called Vined Peach were exposed by her and her friend Mocha. Some of these involved TCS asking Vined Peach for NSFW artwork, roleplays, and he even bought her Discord Nitro and a 50-inch dragon dildo with the intention of getting those mentioned NSFW artworks. I don't know how old Vined Peach was, but minor or not, buying sexual favors from people like this is a gross abuse of power. Not only that, while Vine Peach was in hospital after a suicide attempt, which was rumored to be because she wanted to get away from TCS, he would continuously ask her for nudes and ordered her a dildo for her once she got out of the hospital. That is appalling. I don't think I have to explain why doing all of this to someone recovering from a suicide attempt is awful, do I? In 2021, TCS, the poor little baby, got a little upset that his Splanimations wiki page had all the bad things he had done on it. Cry me a fucking river. Obviously, they didn't cave into his demands, so he sent a request to fandom to get every one of his Splatoon-related wiki pages about him taken down for privacy reasons. Oh, and here's something strange. TCS has admitted online that he masturbates to Mio Akiyama from the anime K-On! She's listed as being 15 to 18 years old. Why would you tell people that? Moving on to someone else, Ellie Gedelia. She played the whole situation off as something silly by very conveniently forgetting what happened, and by downplaying everything. In a sort of response to that, Lizzie Ratsicle broke off her friendship with Ellie because she thought she had become too irredeemable and overly sexual. But apparently, Lizzie is also just as irredeemable as Ellie because Lizzie and Ghost of Time 1 have allegedly continued to find more people in the Splatoon community to manipulate. In better news, you'll be happy to know that the Loot House server was shut down. Sadly, new Loot House style servers are rumored to have popped up. We can only hope that these adult NSFW servers are only used by adults. It's also very clear that most, if not all of the people involved in this, specifically those who went out of their way to take advantage of and abuse people, have not learnt from their mistakes. It feels like these people are just sorry they got caught. Despite all of this, there are still people who defend these actions. I found this really bad take on Twitter where somebody defended everyone in the loot house because they're friends. This person fails to see the problem with minors being in a sexual roleplay server with adults. It's just crazy to see this whole situation whiz over their head, and there's probably more people out there that think this. If you would like more information on all of this, I have linked a fandom page in the description with info. However, the page seems to have been taken down. When it comes to video game communities, there will always be people in these groups that have sinister intentions. Manipulation, abuse of power, sexual misconduct, harassment. These are just some of the things these people will attempt. And this doesn't just apply to video game communities, it applies to communities in general. So please be smart and stay safe. We've gone too deep now. It's time to swim back up to the surface. While we swim upwards, let's lighten the mood. Why don't I talk about some Splatoon related channels I really enjoy? Octoboy. He makes really well edited content based around unique ideas and he incorporates his friends into these videos. It's always a good day when he uploads, and hopefully we'll be getting videos uploaded more frequently seeing as he's taking a break from his studies to focus on YouTube. Here's a fun fact, I also took a break from my studies to focus on YouTube, and that's how my first iceberg video was born. Now, I mentioned her in the part 1 video, and she even helped me out with an entry for that video, Caitlin Coy. She makes great Splatoon related music, fan content, and stream content. She streams Splatoon 2 and some other games pretty much every day, and then uploads edited videos every now and again. Jmoji. I think he's an absolutely great YouTuber that focuses more on Nintendo related content, but he has an amazing backlog of Splatoon related videos that I would highly recommend. Well, I would highly recommend watching all of his videos too. And he also live streams on Twitch. Lastly, I've referenced them in this video and I've only been subbed to them for a few weeks as of writing this script, but I might as well include them here too. Rassicus. I really hope I've been pronouncing that name right, but anyway, I already mentioned that they made a Splatoon iceberg video covering a different iceberg. They also make other Splatoon related content plus some other videos. All in all, I'd highly recommend checking these creators out, and there's also so many other great people in the community that I didn't even point out. If I were to do so, I think I'd be here all day. Never let the worst people in the community overshadow the ones that make it a better place. And with all of that being said, we've made it back to the surface. We've conquered the iceberg. Into the light we go. This has been a massive journey, but it's come to an end. Splatoon is such an amazing game series with unique gameplay, great music, and deep lore. And as clearly shown by this iceberg, there's so much to talk about related to these games, and even more that I didn't cover, plus all the things we don't know coming to Splatoon 3. I've gained a bigger appreciation for this series, and I hope you all have too. Now thank you all so much for watching this big two-parter. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to Haru and KaibaQ for their illustrations. I really love their work, so if you want to see more of it, check out their links in the description. Shoutouts to the legend behind the iceberg, JG Ultra, for helping to explain some of the entries, and to the Splatoon wiki where I got a lot of my information from. All of their links will be in the description too. If you enjoyed all of this and would like to see more videos from me, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like or a comment too if you want. I really do love reading comments, so if you do leave one, I'll definitely read it. Check out my socials and community Discord if you want to. Links in description. I hope you have an amazing day or night, take care, and if you want to stick around, I'm going to keep the Octo expansion credits rolling until it finishes. After that, I'll play the regular outro song by Boy Curse called Don't Shut Me Out. And with all of that being said, I'll see you all on the turf.
Don't shut me out, don't shut me out, don't shut me out.